best place to hide the truth is in the pages of a book.
Maybe we should just read. Maybe we should just read.
Welcome to Hayes Reviews. Hello, good evening. How's it going out there? Can you hear me? Can you see me? I hope you can. Please let me know in the chat. My name is Nick. I am the creator of Hayes Reviews, and we are back for another live stream. Tonight, we are beginning a new book, a brand new book, a book we haven't read before, a book hopefully you haven't read before. It's definitely a book that I haven't read before, which is why I am here doing this, reading this, so that we can all benefit from the good work, the important work, the hard work of people who are no longer with us, but they left these incredible artifacts which transfer their message through space and time out into the future for many years after they have passed from this realm into the next place, wherever that may be. Yes, of course, I'm talking about books. That is what we do on this channel. We read books, we collect books, we talk about books because, in my humble opinion, books are the best way to learn about what the heck is going on in the world. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on in the world, and quite often it can be challenging to get to the bottom of it and to understand it. So when we do try and do that, quite more often than not, we end up with some ranting and raving madman screaming down a microphone, telling us about how the world's going to end and how crazy things are going to happen, and we're all going to be maimed and brutally tortured and thrown into gulags, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of doom and gloom. There's a lot of black pill content. There's a lot of hopelessness and despair, and a lot of messaging which is putting forth this idea that there's nothing we can do. And I don't really think that's true. And I think if we slow down a little bit, if we step back, if we unplug from that drip, drip, drip of fear porn and mind control, we can reassess and readjust our trajectory through life in order to have a better outcome for ourselves and the people around us, our communities and our families, and the wider society at large. So that's what we're here to do on this channel. I've just received a message that I'm coming through loud and clear, and that is wonderful to hear. Some of you, if you are familiar with the channel and you've been watching me over the last year, you'll know that I just had a whole month off. And so coming back to live streaming after having a month off, you kind of forget how things work, and you worry if you've pressed the right buttons in the right order and done the settings correctly. But from what I can tell, it's happening, it's working, things are going all right. So that is good. We are broadcasting tonight on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and Entropy. You can watch the stream on any of those platforms. My personal preference is Odyssey. Just seems to be a little more friendly to the free speech. More censorship on YouTube and Rumble, well, that's I don't know. The people who set it up and run it and own it and control it, I think they could be up to no good. But we work with what we've got, and we get the message out in any way we can. And so far, I haven't been booted off any of the channels. But just in case that does happen, I would encourage people to consider signing up to the not the newsletter. Sorry, I don't have a newsletter, but I have a mailing list. And if you shoot me an email at autonomoususername@gmail.com, I will store your email somewhere safe where we can stay in touch if I ever get closed down for one reason or another. This could be the one that gets us shut down. But I say that every time. And we finished 9 books in their entirety by this point. I don't think the powers that be are too concerned about people who read books. And do you know why? because there's hardly any of us left at this point. So I think they're like, yeah, whatever, read your books and broadcast them out, because they know there's only going to be a very small minority, a handful of people who are tuning in and checking it out and have the attention span that is long enough to focus on long form content such as this. But anyway, to all of you who are hanging out live tonight, I am deeply grateful and so happy to have people here. You worry after a month off whether anyone's going to show up, but we've got a few people showing up, which is lovely indeed. Over on YouTube, we got Frank, we got Lil Ronnie Cooper 77, Schwam is here, welcome Schwam. Elizabeth Kendall, welcome back to you. We got Plutonian Productions, good to see you as well. And I think that is it for now on YouTube, which is Mindhack and Hasdak, awesome. Yes, Hasdak, I am alive. I made it. I made it through February. And then also over on Rumble, we got Heidi and Turbs, good friends of the show. Very good to see you as well. So let's get on with it. That's everyone we've got tuning in live. I always drop a message here for people watching the replay just to remind you that there will be a pinned comment underneath the video with timestamps, so that if you want to jump ahead to the reading of the book or another section from the preamble ramble, you are free to do so. But that's only because you're in the future. Us here in the present, we got to go at the pace that the slowly, moment by moment unfolding of time allows. We can't fast forward. We can't rewind. We're just here in the ever-present, eternal now. And so thank you for being here. It's extra special to have you turning in. Oh, we got Timmy as well. What's up, Timmy? Good to see you. And thank you for leaving a comment. Yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know all that stuff by now. So we're starting a new book, and I do have a little preamble ramble prepared. It's not as detailed as an in-depth as some of my previous ones, but it'll give us a nice kind of on-ramp to read Prince Charles, the Sustainable Prince. And the subtitle, which is not very clear at the top there, it says, Who Will Rule the New World Order? And this is a book by Joan, Veon. You can just about see her. And it's a very slender book. It's only about 100 pages. So I estimate that we will get through this probably in about 3 sittings. I thought I would ease us back in because the last book we did was 500 pages and that took about 16 live streams to get through. So I thought I'd ease us in with something a little short form and something that wasn't too demanding and overwhelming for people. Also, I will mention that my schedule moving forward is going to be one Haze Reviews live stream every Friday because I have other stuff going on with my other community with Deviced, and I'm doing some sessions in there and work and etc. Life, blah, 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 all that stuff. I can't do more than that a week at the minute. So I thought, let's at least do one live stream a week. That gives people a whole week to catch up if they miss it. And then we can sort of keep marching on with our education and our mission to learn from books in that way. So that's going to be the schedule moving forward. Every Friday at 6 p.m. UK time, I'll be broadcasting live. So I think that's all the housekeeping done. So let's get over to the preamble ramble. Now I got a new keyboard, which means I have to press buttons slightly differently to make things happen. But hopefully you should be able to see Wikipedia. And the page I brought up is Charles III. Now, of course, the title of the book, as you just saw, is Prince Charles, the Sustainable Prince. That's because this book was written back in 1997, almost 30 years ago. Can you believe that it is 1997 was almost 30 years ago? I can't. But the book has been around since that time. And since that time, Prince Charles has had a promotion. You know, he's been waiting for it for a long time. He's been very patient. He's been very diligent, waiting in the wings, just not getting impatient. You know, he's not been jumping ship or causing problems, just waiting it out. And finally, after all this time, he got the promotion that he's been waiting for his entire life at the ripe old age of, 73 or something when he became king. So he got it. Let's see. It says in here anyway. So I thought we would get a little bit of the Wikipedia background on this man. Who is he? What's he all about? Where does he come from? And why are we reading a book about him? There might be nothing to see here. It could be absolutely alarmism. It could be a lot of conspiracy theory, but that is why we're checking out the book. We're going to see if it aligns with reality. If there are things in this book which we can see elsewhere in the world, that are backed up by other documents and other resources, perhaps online, perhaps offline. And that's the whole point. We don't have to believe blindly everything that we read on every web page and in every book. We want to give it some thought, consider it, weigh it against the other things that we know and the other things that we've heard and the other research that we've done. And so let's dive into the preamble ramble and get a little bit of introduction to this man. So this is Charles III. Now, for anyone who's familiar with films, you will all know that the third film is always the worst in every trilogy. And I'm not really au fait with my history of monarchs and royalty, but I'm pretty sure that Charles I and Charles II were not all that, let's say. I don't think they were the most popular kings. So this is the third, maybe the third attempt, the third iteration. Part 3 is going to be better than part 1 and 2, but we shall see. But Charles III, Charles Philip Arthur George. Now, I was having a laugh with the people in the device community because we were looking, I did a video recently reacting to a speech by Oliver Anthony, whose real name is Christopher something or other. And I was teasing a little bit. I was saying, Oliver Anthony, what a strange name. That's just 2 first names, isn't it? And then it turns out he actually has a real first name, which is Christopher. So he's actually called Christopher Oliver Anthony, which is 3 first names. Anyway, turns out here we've got a man who's got 4 first names as his name, Charles Philip Arthur George. It's like being called Terry, John, Barry, Lenny. Do you know what I mean? Like 4 first names. I don't know. It just tickles me in the funny bone, and it gives me a little giggle to just think about that. But yeah, that's what he's called, Charles Philip Arthur George. He is the king of the United Kingdom and 14 other Commonwealth realms since 2022. So he's pretty new to the job, and he's 3 years into it at this point. He was born in Buckingham Palace, of course, and this was during the reign of his grandfather, King George VI. And he became heir apparent when his mother acceded to the throne in 1952. And then he was created a prince in 1958. So he was 10 years old when he became a prince, which is pretty nuts. He was educated at Cheam School in Gordonstown. And then he went to Victoria, Australia for a 6-month stint at Timbertop. He got a history degree from the University of Cambridge, and he served in the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy for 5 whole years. In 1981, he married Lady Diana Spencer. They had 2 sons, William and Harry. Charles and Diana divorced in 1996 after they had each engaged in a well-publicized extramarital affairs. I don't know a great deal about the royal family and about Princess Diana. I do have a book somewhere around here called The Princess Diana Conspiracy, all about that bit over there. I don't know if you can see that I'm pointing to. That area of my bookshelf is royal family and books about them. But I have The Princess Diana Conspiracy, which is all about the curious facts and situation around her death. So it's very interesting, and it's a part of the history and the story that I would like to know a lot more about. These well-publicized extramarital affairs suggest that their union was never one of love, never one of consent even. It sort of suggests that they were told, you're going to marry, and the reasons for that are kind of, I imagine, something along the lines of Game of Thrones, big sort of strategic reasons of keeping families in check and keeping the balance of power sort of under control, so that it was an arranged marriage, in other words, I think, and that's probably why they end up having well-publicized extramarital affairs. And other people probably know a lot more about this than I. But in the end, Diana died. And then Charles, in 2005, married his long-term partner, Camilla Parker Bowles. Bowles. They say Bowles, but it's spelled Bowles. So I'm just going to go with Bowles. So Camilla Bowles and Charles Philip Arthur George finally were united in 2005. So he undertook official duties and engagement on behalf of his mother, and he represented the United Kingdom on visits abroad. This is kind of important because as we're going to see, quite a lot of what we're learning about is that this man is very closely connected with things like world government and this globalist sort of movement to make everything standard across the face of the place where we are. I don't want to call it a globe in case I trigger the flat earth people, and I don't want to call it a plane in case I trigger the globe people, you know. So the place where we are, we'll call it the face of the place instead of the face of the earth. That's what we say now. So he's jet setting and representing the UK, and he's doing the sort of kind of activities that an internationalist might do, right? And then in 1976, he founded the Prince's Trust, and he became patron or president of more than 800 other charities and organizations. And just remember this word president, because there's a very interesting explanation of what this word president means on another page that we're going to look at in a moment. A few things here that I actually think I agree with. He advocated for the conservation of historic buildings and the importance of traditional architecture in society. That's good. I like that. I don't like the new buildings that they're throwing up these days. I think they're built with the intention of disturbing people, making people feel small and unhappy and disturbed while they're going about their day-to-day business. If just go and look at any major city center to get an idea of that, right? He's also an environmentalist, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. It depends what kind of environmentalism you're talking about. If you're talking about net zero carbon, then that's the bad kind of environmentalism. But if you're talking about like growing your own food, keeping your own animals, and tending to the land, leaving it better than you found it, there's a version of environmentalism which is very important and very necessary. And the next part says Charles supported organic farming. I don't know why it's a past tense. I mean, he might have abandoned that now. But at some point, he supported organic farming. And he also wanted to prevent climate change. Well, good luck, because you can't prevent weather as much as you might try. But this thing here I also agree with. He said that he is also a prominent critic of the adoption of genetically modified food, and that is in the present tense. So that might be some good news for us here in the Untidy Kingdom. Maybe he's going to step in and protect us from those GM products, but we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, here it is. He was 73 when he acceded to the British throne, making him the oldest person ever to do so. 73 years old. Like, I mean, his mother was much, much younger. Queen Elizabeth II. Let's see, does it tell her on this little pop-up? Doesn't tell her their age that she became, but you can see in that picture she was much, much younger. And she was a bit of a looker, I'm not going to lie, Elizabeth II. She's the kind of woman who sort of has an air of royalty about her. This creep, I mean, he just looks like he's going to tear your face off and dig in, you know, like he looks like he's going to tear your face off with his face, you know, like he just looks like he's up to no good. But 73 years old. So I can't imagine what this man's been through, what it's like to be born into this kind of family, to be put through the sort of educational institutions that he's been put through. You know, it's unimaginable. It really is. So that's another thing to bear in mind. But we can learn a bit about that on here. So this was kind of strange, right? In the early life, family and education section, it says Charles was born at 2114 on the 14th of November, 1948. I have no idea why they've included the time of his birth. It just seemed an odd detail to me to throw in there, right? 2114. Okay. I don't know the relevance, but anybody who's into like their numerology might want to, I don't know, do some analysis and see what you can come up with. But I just thought I'd mention that because it was a bit odd. He immediately became the heir apparent when he was born. And he automatically assumed the traditional titles of Duke of Cornwall and Duke of Rothesay and Earl of Carrick and Baron of Renfrew, and Lord of the Isles and Prince and Great Steward of Scotland. So it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of titles just automatically given to somebody at a very young age before they've had any chance to mature, to prove themselves, to grow up, to learn any skills, to gain any sort of understanding or awareness of the world and how it works. It's just like, boom, there you go. You're a duke, you're an earl, you're a baron, and you're a lord, you're a prince, and you're a steward all at once. And that's what you're going to be, like it or not. The authorized biography of Jonathan Dimbleby in 1994 says that Charles's parents were physically and emotionally distant, and Philip was blamed for his disregard of Charles's sensitive nature, including forcing him to attend Gordonstown, where he was bullied. Oh, poor Charles. He was sensitive and he was bullied. Doesn't that just make your heart go out to him? And it really humanizes the character, and it makes you feel a bit of sympathy for him, and like, oh, it must have been really tough. To grow up being Charles. Then later on, he got a bit older and he broke royal tradition by going straight to university after his A-levels. And he did this instead of joining the armed forces. So in his family, it's the tradition to join the armed forces. And he was like, no, thank you. I'm going to go to university and get drunk and waste some time and enjoy a bit of university life. Well played, Charles. Then he was admitted to Trinity College, Cambridge. He did archaeology and anthropology, and then he switched to history. He became the first British heir to earn a university degree, graduating in June 1970 from Cambridge with a 2:2 Bachelor of Arts, which is, incidentally, the same degree that I got. I didn't get it from Cambridge. I got it from Liverpool, but it was a 2:2. No, actually, I got a 2:1. Sorry, I'm lying. I got a better degree. I got a 2:1 Bachelor of Arts. Ha! Stitch that, King Chucky. But of course, as it always happens in the case of this class of people, his Bachelor of Arts, his 2:2 Bachelor of Arts degree was promoted to a master's degree. Like, what? Okay. Transformed, promoted, transmogrified. I don't know how that works. It only seems to happen to people who are from these wealthy, powerful families and who are close to politics. And yeah, I don't know, the rest of us, I don't know how we would go about getting a promotion for our degree. But anyway, this article goes on. There's loads to it. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. But that's a little bit of background, a little bit of intro to King Charles III, or the king formerly known as Prince Charles, as I like to call him. A little bit about Cheam School, where he went. It was founded in 1645, a very old school. In the 19th century, the school was strictly for the sons of gentlemen only. One boy had to leave when his father was found to be a tradesman with a shop in London selling cutlery. So that's the kind of school that King Chucky went to. And it has 100 acres. So imagine what could be. I mean, when you walk past schools these days, they all kind of look like prisons. You know, there's fences around them, but at least you can see through the fence, and you can generally see what's going on in the school, whether there's children in the playground or in the classrooms, and the adults who are supervising them. But imagine 100 acres. What could go on if you sent your child there? I don't know if it was a boarding school or not. It says a private preparatory school. I don't know if they lived there and stayed overnight. But Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was a pupil there, and also was Winston Churchill's father. He also went there, and so did the 15th governor of Bangkok. So it's got a bit of prestige, a bit of renown, and there are 4 houses in the school known as divisions, and this is the present day. There was there's Aldrich, which is yellow, Beck, which is green, Gilpin is red, and Tabor is blue. And this just reminded me of Harry Potter, you know, and Slytherin and Hufflepuff and all that stuff. And the colors of the school stood out to me as well. These are red. The colors of the school are red. The school colors are red and blue. And that just caught my eye, because I'm always going on about the red team and the blue team and how things are divided this way, and most people fall into either supporting the red team or the blue team, whether it's politics or football or sugary carbonated drinks. But very seldom and much less often do you see red and blue together. I'll give you an example of where you do see it together. Spider-Man, Superman, superheroes, they often have red and blue outfits. Another place you often see it is on pictures of Jesus, where you can see red and blue emanating from the center, from his sort of heart area. These two red and blue, I don't know what you call them, emanations coming out. That's another place where you see it mixed up. And so that it just kind of, I noticed that and I thought, okay, well, maybe this is the school where the heroes, you know, the people who are going to be our heroes are sent and prepared, because it's a preparatory school. They are prepared for their role. Okay, they are groomed and they are told what they're going to be and what role they're going to fulfill, and it's all going to be planned ahead of time. And then this is where they go and get and receive the training. I don't know if that's true or not. Just something that caught my eye: the red and the blue. If we look at the kind of people who are notable alumni, whoops, didn't mean to do that. We have got prime ministers, we got painter, composers, we've got cricketers, surgeons, chancellor of the exchequer, researcher, writer, poet, army officer, rower, headmaster, lord chancellor, the last Maharaja of Indore, Yeshwantro Holkar II. We got novelists, footballers, bankers. Oh, this guy's a footballer and a banker. That's not a pair of jobs that you often see mixed together in one person. 11th Lord Kinnard was a British principal of the Football Association, and he played in 9 FA Cup finals, and he's also a banker. So how about that? Mountaineers, esotericist, writers, and cricketers. Yeah, so, you know, I don't know. Depending on your criteria for heroes, maybe or maybe not, you see these kind of people as heroes. But that is Cheam School. And he mentioned as well that the king, formerly known as Prince Charles, set up in 1976 the King's Trust. So this is 49 years ago and is still going today. And this also gives us a little insight into the kind of things he's involved in and the kind of things that I think we're going to be reading about in the book tonight. So what is the King's Trust? Well, it's a United Kingdom-based charity founded in 1976 by King Charles III, who was the Prince of Wales at the time, to help vulnerable young people get their lives on track. Now, this is a very good point to have a look in the YouTube chat at Hasdag's comment, who says that he was best friends with Seville. And I know it's not pronounced Seville, but I just, I know that sometimes Americans pronounce it Jimmy Seville. I find that kind of funny. Savile is how we usually say it. And yeah, there's so many pictures and instances of Savile hanging out with the royal family. He was brought in to mediate and help soothe the tensions and the strife that existed between Prince Charles and Lady Diana, for example. And the reason now is a good time to mention it is because of all the things that came to light about this man. And then you look at how his best buddy, King Chucky, had a King's Trust, which was all about vulnerable young people. Helping them, but it's all about vulnerable young people nevertheless. So that's a very important point to bear in mind and to think about. In 1999, the numerous trust charities were brought together as the Prince's Trust and acknowledged by Queen Elizabeth II at a ceremony in Buckingham Palace where she granted it royal charter. So royal charter, we've seen this before. This was given to organizations and groups, private entities such as the Royal Institute for International Affairs and others, whereby the royal family grant royal charter, and this gives this air of legitimacy. It gives this air of authority. And so we've been conditioned in this country to look at something with the name royal on it and think, oh, wow, yes, great. That must be very, very important and very good. It must be a very good thing to have royalty and royal families and royal organizations out there doing what they do. But, you know, over in America, people see the word royal on something and they rebel and revolt and they go and get their guns, and very rightfully so. I wish that was the way it would be in this country, only we haven't got any guns, so we can't do that, unfortunately. But royal charter, that was given in 1999 to the Prince's Trust, and it has been on the up and up ever since then. The governance of the Prince's Trust is the next bit we're going to talk about. Which and this is I just threw me off track. I got confused, but this bit is, as I mentioned a little bit earlier at the beginning of the stream, Charles III founded the Prince's Trust and is now its president. What is a president? According to Wikipedia, a president is a figurehead with no legal responsibility. So words, they're very interesting and they're very important. And hearing or seeing or reading this on Wikipedia, that the president is a figurehead position with no legal responsibility. A figurehead position. That's what a president is. So for all the people who are fawning over presidents, thinking that they're going to save the world, that they're going to help you, and they care about you, and they are working diligently and selflessly and tirelessly to make things better for you and yours, you're really very sorely mistaken. They're just figureheads, and they are just put out there for you to, basically for you to get into arguments with other people about. Right? All the politicians are put out there for this kind of reason, because they know they'll be divisive. Some people will love them, some people will hate them, and the people who love them will argue and fight with the people who hate them, and the two groups will never realize that they're being shafted every second of every day, right? So this is a red team, blue team thing again. But yeah, interesting admission there on Wikipedia. What is a president? It's a figurehead position with no legal responsibility. Continuing down, it says, on the 10th of November 2023, it was announced the Prince's Trust and all Prince's Trust charities globally intend to become the King's Trust. All right. So remember that long-awaited promotion that he's been waiting for the last 73 years or so, or 50-something years. Well, now that the prince is no longer a prince and he is a king formerly known as Prince, it's become the King's Trust. And this is incorporating global charities. So just how global is it? Well, we're going to find out about that. Firstly, we've got a little bit here about ambassadors. So there's a lot of celebrity ambassadors who help raise awareness of the work that's done in the King's Trust. These include Phil Collins, Gary Lineker, Jeremy Irons, Tom Hardy, Jerry Halliwell, Benedict Cumberbund, Justin Paxhaw, Idris Elba, Gemma Arterton, and Sharon Osbourne. So they all are giving the seal and stamp of approval to King Chucky and his trust and the things that they're doing for vulnerable young people. But Philip Schofield, he got kicked out because he's no longer to be affiliated with the charity because he had an affair with a young employee. Bad, naughty Philip. Subsidiaries of the King's Trust can be found in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and America. There's also a subsidiary called the King's Trust International, which operates in Barbados, Greece, India, Jamaica, Jordan, Malta, and Pakistan. What are they doing? Well, the King's Trust Group, they have a mission, and that is to transform lives. You know, just to pause on that phrase for a minute, transform lives. That is like, that doesn't mean anything, right? To transform means to change. And if you make something much, much worse, that's changing it. If you take it and you make it worse, you've changed it. If you get a beautiful Fabergé egg and you drop it on the floor and stamp on it, you just changed it. You just transformed it. Now it's totally worthless and you've destroyed it and it's never going to come back. But you transformed it. So just transforming life and transforming lives, you know, and the British Labour Party's campaign of change. It's such lazy copyright and it's such lazy marketing. And people just hear these words and assume that it means improvement and that it means betterment. And you shouldn't fall into that trap. So when you say, you know, if you went after somebody and abused them physically, emotionally, sexually, whatever, you would transform their life, right? So this is the kind of like double meaning. This is the kind of language that is sort of telling you and putting it out there, but you have to read and and think critically while you're reading, and not just be carried along the current of, oh, transformation. Yeah, that's great. We love transformation. I saw that Transformers film, Optimus Prime. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I love transformation. Michael Bay. Yeah, it's great. The good guys always win. Oh, yeah, transformation. Let's transform some lives. So don't get carried along with it. Pay attention to the words. Anyway, they're transforming lives and they're building sustainable communities across the world. So that's good. We like sustainability, don't we? During the 2019-2020, the Prince's Trust Group started supporting young people in Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Malaysia. Similar projects were later launched in Uganda, Tanzania, and Nigeria. So how global is this? It's pretty darn global. They got fingers in pies all over the place. Lionel Richie, what's he got to do with it? Well, he is the founding global ambassador and chairman of the Global Ambassador Group. So there you are. Lionel Richie's in on the fun too. As for finances, the Prince's Trust Trading Limited has a total income of nearly 36 million. And I just see we've got Ashley Styles doing a bit of numerology in the chat. I bet you will know why the number 36 is significant. I'll let you type that one in. I won't give any spoilers because you're doing good numerology there. But yeah, 36 million, what a surprise that's the income. And then it says here as well that the King's Trust is one of the 100 largest charities in the UK, ranked by expenditure. So it's worth an estimated 1.4 billion pounds. And that was back the 10 years between 2006 and 2016. So there's a lot more here as well about the Prince's. What can I call it? The King, formerly known as Prince's Trust. There's loads of information on this, and I bet that would be worthy of a deep dive at some point. But we got to get into the book. That's what we're here. So we're just whizzing through our preamble ramble at this stage. So this popped up, and I'd never heard of this place before. But this is a place called Poundbury. Have you ever heard of Poundbury? I hadn't until I was reading about King Chucky on Wikipedia, and it says that this is one of his projects, right? So what is Poundbury? Well, it's an experimental urban extension on the western outskirts of Dorchester. The development is led by the Duchy of Cornwall and had the keen endorsement of King Charles III back when he was a prince and a duke. It's designed based on traditional architecture and new urbanist philosophy, and it's got 4,100 people living there. It's due for completion in this year, and it's expected to house a population of 6,000. So it's not finished yet. They're still working on it, still getting it up and running. But it has a mission. This town has a mission, Poundbury, and the mission is that has been built according to the principles of Charles III, who is known for holding strong views challenging post-war trends in town planning that were suburban in character. The development is built to a high-density urban pattern intent on creating an integrated community of shops, businesses, and private and social housing. So that's going to be lots and lots of social housing, presumably full of asylum seekers and migrants, surrounded by Turkish barbershops, nail salons, vape shops, and takeaways, fried chicken and curry, judging by a lot of the towns up in the north. I don't know, though. Maybe I'm just being a bit flippant. Maybe they got bigger plans for it, but that's what I see in a lot of towns here. But it consists of 35% social housing and is designed for sustainable development. Of course it is, which includes carbon neutrality. So this is starting to sound like, to me, Frank, you literally just took the words right out of my mouth. 15-minute city. That's exactly what I was thinking when I was looking at this. Poundbury, this sounds to me like the model of a 15-minute city, doesn't it? Sustainable development, high density urban, 35% social housing, carbon neutrality. there you are. And I haven't read much more about it. I just had a quick flick through this, but there is more here. So if you want to learn about the up and coming dystopian environment that you're going to be living in, oh, it's got pictures as well. Look at those buildings. Yeah, they look, I don't know. They look nicer than some of the massive high rise skyscrapers that go up in city centers these days. But yeah, nicer. There's Queen Mother Square. There's a fire station. What else have we got? Peninsula Way. But yeah, Poundbury. Maybe someplace you want to go on your next bank holiday. Have a trip down to Poundbury. Check it out. And get a taste of what it's going to be like to be living in a 15-minute city. And sorry, I just flipped this tab over without giving you any warning. So if you just spat your drink out all over your desk because I just suddenly put this picture on the screen, I will apologize. But I wanted to give this an honorary mention. This is the most recent portrait of the king formerly known as Prince Charles. I've seen this portrait in person because I went on a tour of Buckingham Palace with my in-laws when they visited during summer last year. And you can go through a small portion of the palace with a bunch of other tourists in a very specific order, a route, and you can look at their paintings and their sculptures, and they have this big thing on display in the ballroom. And it tells you all you need to know, really. When they say a picture paints 1,000 words, yes, Ashley Styles, this is a monarch butterfly, which has a very significant symbol because it is related to the monarch programming, MK Ultra, which was all to do with mind control. And there's other curious things about this picture. If you mirror it and flip it upside down and sort of tile it and mirror it, then you can see these sort of demonic faces made up in the sides of all this stuff here, right? Could be accident, if you faces are symmetrical, right? So if you mirror an image, there's a good chance of faces being identified and images, and we project also onto things that we look at to make meaning of them. I often sit in my car and I look at the backs of the cars in front of me, and they look like faces, right? They don't look like happy faces most of the time. I actually think the backs of cars with their rear view lights often look quite demonic. So that's a fun game that you can play next time you're stuck in traffic. Just have a look at the backs of the cars in front of you and just try and see the faces, and you tell me if they look like happy faces or if they look like tortured demonic souls trapped in metal. But nevertheless, whether it's intentional or accidental, this portrait has energy, right? It has an energy to it. It has a vibe. I don't think it's a good vibe. I wouldn't be happy if I asked for a portrait and somebody gave me something that made me look this evil. I mean, it's funny because like this, again, like I said, is so in your face. He's best friends with Savile. He's transforming the lives of young people all over the planet. And this is his portrait. So I just wanted to get that on the record and mention that up front. Okay, what do we got next? We got a short clip. It's a 2-minute clip. I'm really hoping that I can find a way to play it to you so that you can hear it and so that I can hear it as well. But this is the author of the book that we're going to be reading when I eventually get past the preamble ramble. And this is just it's an introduction to her, and you can get a sense of the person, what she's about, and she will also tell you a little bit about why she wrote the book and also about her other book as well. Before we go to that, I just want to press a few buttons. So please bear with me a moment. Okay. So I'm going to put my headset on a minute. And the reason I'm going to put my headset on is just so I can listen along to this video while you listen along to it. I don't usually wear headphones when I'm doing this, but here we go. So, this is Joan Veon. The clip is called World Government, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the book that we're going to look at tonight. Hang on a minute. I think this might turn into a bit of a... I might get this wrong. I might double up, actually. Okay, there's going to be a little pause before I can play this clip, and just bear with me.
I was quite shocked to see Prince Charles and to discover his role behind the scenes. My book, Prince Charles, the Sustainable Prince, talks about that hidden role of the prince. It was the first book to define, to discuss, to explain.
We just got an echo there, didn't we? Did we just get an echo? Yeah, we did. Sorry. Okay, we have to do this without an echo. I'm going to have to figure out a way to do this without an echo. And I'm not quite sure how to do it because I haven't done this for a month. Let's try this. We'll go back over here. We close this. I'm going to press the button to... Sorry, everybody. This is very unprofessional, isn't it? It's a good job you're not paying for this. It's a good job it's free. All right. What I need to do is I need to mute this video here. All right, got it. That's it. I had a tab open with the video audio playing, and that's why that went wrong. So we're going to go back and try this again. We're doing it live, and I appreciate your patience very much. Let's try this.
I was quite shocked to see Prince Charles and to discover his role behind the scenes. My book, Prince Charles, the Sustainable Prince, talks about that hidden role of the prince. It was the first book to define, to discuss, to explain what sustainable development means coming out of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit and Agenda 21. It was the first book to explain public-private partnerships, which others and myself call global corporate fascism. My second book is called The United Nations Global Straitjacket. In this book, it's an overview of the world governmental structure. Today, we're going to look just briefly at the political side of world government. We're going to go into, in depth, the economics, because I figured you all were mature enough and smart enough to handle what I have been weeding through for the last 12 years. I also talk again in more depth about public-private partnership and Bill Clinton's reinventing government, because that's what it is, a sale of all government assets. And then, of course, the economic, the legal, and the philosophy of what we all know. I have titled this speech, Understanding the Power Structure and Players of World Government in the 21st Century. What I would like for you to know is what I think is true, and that is we are not world government is not coming. You know, it's not out there somewhere. It's here. It's been here. And what we are now able to see is the structure. As far as seeing the structure, believe me, I have spent a lot of time piecing pieces together. I have read at least, 10, 12,000 pages of their documents.
So there you are. Apologies for that. You were looking at my bald head while I was playing the video, but I did catch it. And so you got to see a bit of Joan Veon there. That video came out, or at least it was published 16 years ago on this platform. I don't know when it was made, but yeah, 16 years ago, Joan Veon was talking about public-private partnerships. She was talking about world government, and she had already read 10 to 12,000 pages of their own documents to uncover this reality, which even still to this day, when you talk about it, will be shouted down and poo-pooed as a conspiracy theory, and you're just paranoid and you're just black-pilled, right? Joan Veon, way ahead of the curve. I think you will agree. So a little bit about her. This is a website, Revelation, Dawn of the Global Government. I'm not sure what the URL is for this website, actually, but I'll link it in the comment, the pinned comment below the video. A little biography, okay? It says, imitate those now gone, who with utmost intensity protected liberty. In the early 90s, as a result of attending the United Nations Conference on Population and Development in Cairo, Egypt, Joan Veon received her wake-up call finding there was more going on at the global level than most Americans knew, understood, or were being told. In her determination to understand what that really means for Americans, Joan covered over 103 UN and UN-related conferences since Cairo, which include the economic, political, environmental, military, peacekeeping, legal, trade, and financial. They include Group of 7 Finance Ministers meetings, Group of 8 Foreign Ministers meetings, the International Organization for Security Commissions, the Rio Plus 5, which was the follow-up to the Earth Summit, World Economic Forum meetings, Free Trade Areas of the Americas meetings, Bank for International Settlements meetings, Gorbachev State of the World forums, various conferences at the UN, the International Criminal Court, Al Gore's first global conference on reinventing government, World Trade Organization meetings, and others. Joan was credentialed through USA Radio Network in Dallas, Texas, and appeared as a regular guest on the Michael Reagan Show, the Derry Brownfield Show, Point of View, Radio Liberty, Jeff Rentz, Southwest Radio Church, the Power Hour, and others. She asked questions and interviewed presidents and prime ministers, key UN officials, World Bank officials, IMF officials, Bank for International Settlement officials, Bank of England officials, high officials throughout the Clinton and Bush administrations, multinational, transnational CEOs, and many others to understand the global agenda and how it relates to you and I living on the local level. Joan wrote 2 books, Charles the Sustainable Prince, which is in its 5th printing, and discusses her belief that when the US Senate signed the UN Charter in 1945 was when America officially entered world government and reverted back under British rule. This book documents the role of the British royal family as a formidable power working behind the scenes of the UN and the role of Prince Charles with that of sustainable development and public-private partnerships. Her second book, The United Nations Global Straitjacket, is over 400 pages, and it's a handbook on world government. In it, she explained the political structure of the United Nations. She discussed the coming global stock exchange, the International Criminal Court, and gave a call to stand in the gap. I think this might actually be a documentary because it says here from the director. So this revelation might be a documentary. Here we go. Yeah, it is. There you go. It's a DVD. And there's different people in it, it looks like, with different clips. There's AJ. There's Skousen, Joel Skousen. He's got a couple of books on my wish list that I want to get hold of, actually. And some other people whose names I don't know. Ed Griffin, G. Ed Griffin. There you go. We read his book on the channel. Gerard Salent, Jim Mars. That guy doesn't have a name. Sheriff Richard Mack. And it just goes on and on. A lot of people. So this website, let me get the URL for you. Bear with me a second, please. Got a hit button here. Oh, goodness me. I just locked my computer instead of... See, it's a new keyboard. I'm trying to get used to it. I think this is dynamic. Oh, no. I'll put the link in the box below. You might have to do your own digging to figure out what video and where this comes from. Let me go back over here. So that's a little bit of info about Joan Veon. And Frank says that her second book would be a great read. I haven't read it, but I do have a copy of it. And I agree that it would be good to read. But for now, we're looking at Prince Charles, her first book, The Sustainable Prince. So I thought I'd give you an idea of some of the kind of pricing on this book. I was really glad when I got my copy of it, because if you look here, this is on bookfinder.com. I just typed in Prince Charles, The Sustainable Prince. It only came up with 1 page of hits, which are all here. And you can see on the left, if you want to get a brand new copy, you're looking at £156 in the United States, all the way up to £547 if you're in India. However, there are second-hand copies available for as little as £39.20, which is still pretty high for a 100-page book. And the second-hand copies go all the way up to £136.89. So this is one of those books that is not readily available, although there are copies out there. But most people, I think, are going to look at this and say, maybe we don't want to spend £40 on a 100-page paperback book, right? Especially with times being tight as they are. But don't worry, I spend the money and I've got a copy, and so we can read it together here today. And yes, her second book, let's just pull that up. What's it called? United Nations Global Straight Jacket, which is a wonderful title for a book. And we'll let it do its thing. And we got 2 pages here. We'll open both of those. And so United Nations Global Straight Jacket, you're looking at £86.60 for a copy of that in the United States, or all the way up to £210. That includes postage and packaging here to England. Or you could buy a copy from India for £566.66. And the shipping for that is only £6.64. Unbelievably. That book came out in 1999. If you want to buy it from Canada, it's going to cost you £100. So yeah, her books are not in print anymore, and the secondhand copies going around that are out there are hard to get hold of and ridiculously priced. So what does that tell us? There must be something good in them. That's what it tells me anyway. So we're about to find out. So thank you for hanging in there for the preamble ramble. We're going to get into the book reading next. Little reminder to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you dig what I do here. And really, I should say what we do, because, you know, I wouldn't be here doing this if you didn't show up and participate and write in the chat and send me messages and give me encouragement and show up. So thank you for being here once again. And if at any time you want to support the show in any way, you can go to allmylinks.com/Hayes Reviews. And this is where you can get, right at the very bottom here, the guitar music bundle download. We were talking about my guitar music in the chat before the stream began. This has 3 or else 4 hours of my little guitar ditties. It has a bunch of stuff that isn't played in the intro and outro to these live streams. And you can get that for free. Just click that link. It's right at the bottom there. You can send crypto if you want to. You can send donations, monthly or one-off donations with PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee. And you can connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, Twixter as I like to call it, Telegram. You can also watch on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Sub to the channels. You can listen to my album on SoundCloud, Brave New World Order. There's 12 songs on that, I think. Or you can send me an email, stay in touch. And you can join my free community, which is over at the school platform. That is a lot of fun. Let's have a look at that. Okay, we got to verify. It's got to check I'm human. It's got to scan my browsing history and send that off to GCHQ. So if you come to my free community, it's called Deviced. We got 80 members now. We are pulling people in. It's pretty fun. You can come to Deviced. You can look at the calendar, and you can see we got meetings on Wednesdays, Fridays. That's today. We got Hayes Reviews, and we also have meetings on Saturdays and a book club. So one of the things that I do with the device community is we get together and we read books, even more books. And we discuss the contents of those books. The next one we're going to be reading is right here. It's called, let's get it up on there. It's called Surveillance Valley, The Secret Military History of the Internet. So the whole purpose of Deviced is to help people with screen addiction. And in order to do that, we got to understand screens. Where did they come from? Who created them? Why is the internet so addictive and time consuming and hard to withdraw from, right? There are answers and there is a whole history to that. And it helps to know the true nature of this relationship that we have with technology, including its history, including who built these things and made them and put them in our pockets. We do that every Saturday over in the book club. And then and that follows the Screenaholics meetings where we just hang out for an hour. We just get to know each other. We share stories, give each other encouragement, advice, guidance, tips, tricks, strategies to deal with our own screen addiction. Because let's face it, at this point, I think we're all screen addicts, aren't we? So there you are. allmylinks.com/Hayes Reviews. Any and all support is greatly appreciated indeed. And now I think everybody, we're ready for tonight's reading. I just got to move some stuff around. I think that went rather well, considering I had a month off. Only a minor cock up there, trying to play the clip. I realized what I did. I had the audio of the browser looping back into the streaming software, and that's what created that loop and that echo. So I had to mute the video on the browser before playing the clip. So there's a tip for you in case you ever decide to start live streaming yourself. Be very careful and bear that in mind. Oh, we got ESP over on Odyssey. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. And I saw I saw Trevor McDonald and Ashley Styles over on YouTube. Good to have you both here. Celine Lyon as well. Good to see you. And I think that's everybody. So you all got your shout outs for showing up live. Now you get what you really came here for, which is sustainable prints. And I've been having a lot of fun, what would you say, shortening the title of this book to sus prints. Suspect prints or suspicious prints. You know, if you, like here, I don't know in other countries, but here in England, if something's sus, that means it's suspect. That means we don't trust it. And I keep abbreviating this book to the sus prints. I think that's a good way to think of it. Okay, so as you can see, it's a slender little 100-pager. 102, just over. Let's go. We'll start with the back first. Prince Charles. And you're just going to have to remember that this was written in the 90s, back when he was a prince. I'm not going to keep correcting it. It's time travel. That's what we're doing right here. Prince Charles is the most important contemporary torchbearer for reviving the Roman Empire. He may be heralding in the New World Order in a different way than most think. The combination of very powerful corporations in partnership with government provides a concept not considered before. This book is written to bring an awareness of a man who has been a major mover and shaker behind the scenes and who is now attracting global interest as a result of his partnership with the United Nations and the World Bank. With the recent tragic death of Diana, the spotlight has been transferred back to Charles. While he has been portrayed as a daft anti-hero type, the author believes this negative portrayal belies the political future for this heir to the oldest and most powerful throne in the world. Who will rule the New World Order? Prince Charles. Tells you right there on the front. So let's have a look. We got here 1997, printed in the USA by Hearthstone Publishing, and I couldn't find any contact details for Hearthstone Publishing. I'm not sure they're still out there and operational, but if they are, please let me know. I would like to get in touch. So you can see here it's divided into a lot of short parts, so it should be easy going. We might get through. It's not even done in chapters, right? So we might get through 30 or 40 pages tonight. We'll see how we go. We might get through 50 pages and polish this whole book off in 2 live streams. That's totally possible. I guess it depends on me, doesn't it? And how many interjections and rambling thoughts I inject into the reading. But let's get started and we'll see how far we get. So, the preface. 3 years ago this week, the Lord asked me to go to the United Nations Conference on Population and Development in Cairo, Egypt. So I think she's Christian. I don't know what flavor of Christian, but when she says the Lord, I think she's talking about God and Jesus. At the time, I had no knowledge of who the participants were or what they were doing in the world. All I knew is that they were peacemakers. As a result of my experience in Cairo, my life changed and the focus of what the Lord was showing me changed. I was challenged to attend a number of other conferences in order to raise awareness of what was happening on the global level and how it would affect each one of us. To date, I have attended 16 UN and UN-related conferences on 4 continents. These conferences have dealt with social, environmental, and economic issues as they are part of the greater picture of world government. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen, world government, and it is here. The foundational philosophy cementing each of these areas into one is sustainable development, which is a merger of capitalism and communism. Our form of government is being replaced by public-private partnerships. It's crazy to me that I think I didn't hear about public-private partnerships until the last, 2 or 3 years. I think it was like Whitney Webb or somebody like her, maybe Ryan Christian, Last American Vagabond, or James Corbett, or somebody of that alternative media ilk who started talking about them, maybe Johnny Vedmore. She was writing about it in 1997, way ahead of the curve. And talking about this merger of capitalism and communism is also very important and relevant to the previous readings we've done on the channel and the previous discussions that I've had and the things that I've said about how capitalism and communism, as they've been served up to the general public, have been a controlled dialectic that has been managed by the same people and funded by the same people off stage and behind the scenes. Okay. So that's not to talk about the theory of capitalism versus the theory of communism. You know, the theory of it is one thing. The actual way it's manifested in reality and the way that it's been sold to the public, i.e., this over here is a communist system and this over here is a capitalist system. What you find when you analyze the reality of the way these two things have been rolled out, you find that they're controlled, set up, and ran by the same people, the people who control the money, basically. I think I might just pop the microphone there. Excuse me. Let me adjust the setting. Okay. So moving on. The implementation of sustainable development, which is taking place on all levels of government, will lead to a complete loss of freedoms. I have tried to show through the activities of Prince Charles how he is changing all societal values on a global basis. As a result of Bible study, there are many who are looking for world government to appear. Okay, that's an interesting sentence. As a result of Bible study, there are many who are looking for world government to appear. So I kind of read that as, I've heard said before that Revelations foretells of coming world government, doesn't it? And the beast system and the mark of the beast and people being unable to buy or sell. And when you believe that it is ordained by God to happen and that it is a certainty and it is a prophecy, there's an argument which says that because you believe it's a prophecy, therefore you're going to allow it to happen and not take action and just say, well, it's been ordained by God that it has to happen and therefore there's no point doing anything about it, and just carry on with our lives and sort of make peace with the fact that world government's going to be established and we're all going to live under tyranny for however long before Jesus comes back. So I think that's what she's saying here. I think it sounds to me like, I interpret it like she's saying, people read the Bible, they read Revelations, they take that as what has to happen and that's God's intention and plan, and therefore they are looking for world government to appear. They're expecting it, they're anticipating it. I'm happy to be corrected on that. I'm not a biblical scholar by any chance, but that's the way I'm reading that sentence. She says, I have concluded, as a result of my activities and research, that we have been under world government since the signing of the UN Charter in 1945. So that would be the New World Order established after the end of the Second World War, the signing of the UN Charter. In addition, I believe the Rhodes legacy is complete. So she's linking it back to Cecil Rhodes and his wills and testament. The power behind the United Nations is the British, which means America reverted back under their rule when we signed the Charter. This conclusion was very difficult for me to reach. There are times when I am researching that the weight of what I am understanding is so heavy that I have to lie down in order to bear it. My research has included reading over 2,000 pages of United Nations documents and related books and papers, and asking questions of key people in the United Nations and its various commissions and agencies, World Bank officials, past and present world leaders, and high officials in the Clinton administration. In addition, I have had in-depth interviews with numerous people in high places in these same organizations. Several interviews dealt specifically with the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum. Lastly, I have been an eyewitness to what is transpiring on the global level. My job is to help you, on the local level, understand this complex, deceptive, evil agenda and how it is and will affect each one of us. This is needed for the sake of the kingdom. How are we going to stand in the gap if we do not know what is going on around us? Right. Darren, how's it going, sir? Hope you're doing well. Hermit Tramp as well. What's up? Kingdom. I'm not quite sure which kingdom she's talking about here. The kingdom. This is needed for the sake of the kingdom. But what she was saying at the top is that like a lot of Bible readers, Bible students of the Bible, are expecting world government to come. She's saying it's already here. It's already been done. It's been here since 1945. They just haven't announced it. They just haven't branded it openly, but they've written it down, and the documents that are being put out and put forth by the UN and its associated think tanks and agencies and groups all tell us this. But of course, most people don't read, and nerds like Joan Veon who do read are the only ones who are aware of this stuff. So continuing, she says, of those who maintain that world government is part of prophecy, I ask this very simple question. If your house were on fire, would you sit back and watch it burn? Knowing insurance statistics, say one house in your neighborhood was going to be destroyed, or would you work to hold back and stop the fire? It is time to understand where the fire is so that we can use the greatest weapons we have, knowledge, prayer, and fasting, in order to stand in the gap. We can hold back unrighteousness. The time is now. Interesting just summary of the greatest weapons we have: knowledge, prayer, and fasting. Certainly very powerful practices. The book you're about to read deals with the business and global pursuits of Prince Charles. Interestingly enough, these are not part of the daily reports that we receive on radio and television. As a result of the tragic death of Diana, Princess of Wales, on August the 31st, 1997, you will find a eulogy to her memory. It was Dr. Noah Hutchings who suggested this be added. While I do not want to take away from what you are about to read, Diana's life and death do make a statement about the prince. The man whom the press has shown us is not the real Charles. Diana knew the real Charles. In her last interview with Britain's Panorama, she talked about the fact that her popularity was something he could not handle, as he had been accustomed to all of the attention. Diana pointed out that her popularity caused a rift in their marriage, which was in addition to the other woman. Diana said, I was a problem. I was a liability. This had not happened before. Lastly, I dedicate this book to my beloved brother-in-law, Rodney Pierce, who went to heaven today. And this was Maryland, September the 10th, 1997. I'm just like flabbergasted at how old this book is. 1997. All right. So we got, first is the eulogy, Diana, the unfulfilled princess. I remember 16 years ago watching with happiness the fairy tale wedding of Prince Charles to Lady Diana Spencer. Over the years, Shy Di, as she was called, became the heroine of the common person. Her growth in grace and stature was not without a lot of bumps, mistakes, and heartache. Life was difficult for her. However, and at times the inward turmoil was reflected on her face and body. Because of the people's love for her, Diana acquired the poise and confidence needed as they affirmed her sense of worth throughout her marriage to the Prince of Wales. A lonely child, Diana was a product of divorce, and divorce was the last thing she wanted for herself and her children. I'm sure when she married the prince, she believed in her own fairy tale. Unfortunately, this is not how her life turned out. She remarked in a very candid, spontaneous interview with Panorama, "There were 3 of us in this marriage. It was a bit crowded." As a result of the unconventional ways she chose to get attention, such as the book by Andrew Morton exposing the true situation, Diana went against the grain of the British royal family, ostracizing herself even further. Okay, I just got to pause there to underline the mention of a book that I haven't heard of. I'm going to put a little sticky tab in here too, just to remind me to come back and see if I can get hold of that book. Although I think I might have heard of that before. I think Andrew Morton might be one of her, I don't know, like her driver or her staff or something like that. I'm not sure. The name rings a bell. I've definitely heard it. More telling than anything else about about life in the palace was a short phrase from the same Panorama interview overlooked by most people. She said the reason for the surprise interview was that, quote, "they wanted to put me away." In June of this year, Princess Diana came to Washington, D.C. to give a press conference at the American Red Cross on landmines. I was there as press. My purpose was different from that of the other journalists, as I had observed the deep loneliness and lack of meaning in her life as she used her beauty to gain any kind of attention she could get. In Diana's search to assuage her deep need for the love her husband was giving to someone else, she took lovers whom she hoped would love her for herself. For a number of years, I had prayed very earnestly for her salvation. In June 1996, when I went to the UN Conference on Human Settlements in Istanbul, Turkey, my roommate was an Englishwoman who had a great love and concern for Diana. One morning, we both prayed with great intercession that she would come to know Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior. As her separation from Prince Charles became final in the form of a divorce, I continued to pray for her. I was ecstatic when I heard she was coming to Washington, D.C. I immediately called the American Red Cross to see how I could attend the press briefing. My desire was to bring her a gift, a Bible. I did that, purchasing for her a small, red, leather-bound King James Bible. I attached a little card which said I had been praying for her and wanted her to know that the only place she would find peace was in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I wrote, "Peace is not to be found in fame, fortune, power, sex, or money, but with the Son of God." At the Red Cross, I mentioned to several people that I had a gift for Diana, and their excitement showed. I was directed to a gentleman who told me he would give it to her, and he asked for my card. I told him that I was giving her my favorite book. As we were waiting for Diana to come out for the press briefing, a lady who had just taken a seat on the marble structure near where I was standing struck up a conversation with me. I asked her where she was from, and she told me the BBC. She and her crew had just flown in for this press briefing. She said she could not imagine why the news desk wanted more coverage when Diana had given a similar press briefing the previous week in London. I told her that I had a lot of admiration for the princess. When she asked why, I explained that I saw Diana as a survivor, reminding her of the spontaneous Panorama interview in which Diana defended herself against the royal family who, she said, had wanted to put her away. The journalist recalled the interview, but had not thought of it the way I did. I told her anyone who would tell the Queen of England that she did not want her son was a survivor. She asked me when Diana did that, and I responded when she told Charles that she would not stay in a crowded marriage. Interestingly, the lady from the BBC found what I had to say revealing, as she had not considered. Seems like we lost the stream, and now we're back. Okay, I think we're back. As a result of standing near the BBC while they were doing an on-site news report, Diana looked over to see what they were doing. I was able to look straight at her and she at me. I have no doubt that our eyes met as I prayed over her that day, asking God to help her recognize her need for Jesus. There are many, many Dianas in this world. The difference between Diana, the Princess of Wales, and those who are unknown is that the princess had everything: position, fame, fortune, power, and love from people all over the world. However, she did not have Jesus Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. No man or woman comes to God except those who first find Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. That is our mission. That is our purpose. There is no other. It is Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Whether or not the Red Cross official gave my gift to Diana, I do not know. But this I know: I did what I was asked to do and what was needed. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Conclusion. The British royal family is quote-unquote royal. They are excessively rich, hold great position not only in Britain but worldwide, are addressed as Her or His Royal Highness, have people curtsy or bow when being presented, have people walk behind them if they are of a lesser birth or rank, and wear gloves when meeting commoners, the Queen, Queen Mother, Princesses Anne and Margaret. The countries of the world are visited by the royal family on a regular basis. Just who are these people? Where do they get their authority? What does it really mean? Are we the prize? Just who is Prince Charles? What is his real objective? And here we have a quote, looks like it's from Revelation 17:12-14. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords, and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. I didn't think this book was going to start with a eulogy for Diana, I'll be honest. But there you go. Hang on a sec, just let me have a sip. Got a dry throat. Not used to talking for this long. All right, I'm back. So Andrew Morton is a journalist. Thank you, Frank. And somebody says over on Rumble that... not on Rumble. On Odyssey, Andrew Morton wrote Diana's biography. Okay, got you. Thank you. I knew the name rang a bell. And then Ashley Styles says 10 Kings is the New World Order global map of districts, 10 kingdoms. And you just reminded me of something. So bear with me before we carry on with the book. Let's go over here to this book, which was sent to me by a good friend of the show as well, my sheriff. Okay, you can't see it. Let's order it. Let's open it. This is Mankind at the Turning Point, which is the second report of to the Club of Rome. This is a 1974 edition of the book. I think it's a first or second edition. I think it's a second edition. And yes, this whole thing that's been going on with Trump talking about annexing Canada, people are saying, well, that's crazy because this book has a map of the world that's divided into 10 different regions, which I'm going to try and find for you right now. I haven't marked up the page yet because I haven't been through this properly, but it's here. So Ashley Styles, there you are. When you say 10 Kings is the New World Order global map of districts, 10 kingdoms, as published by the League of Nations. It's also here in this book by the Club of Rome. You got 1, that's North America. 2 is Europe and Britain. Where's 3? 1, 2, I can't see it. Oh, there's 3. Right over here. It's like Japan sort of region, isn't it? And onwards. But yeah, they're divided into 10. And this is the World System Computer Model. So it's 1974, the World System Computer Model, and a lot of focus on the population, food pricing, food imports, food production, land, diet, and non-agriculture rules section. Yeah, so World System Computer Model divided into 10 regions, and 10 kings from that quote in the Bible, Revelations, 10 horns and 10 kings. So there you are. So let's continue with the book. Introduction. There are many who believe we are in the last days, an opinion based on the regathering of the nation of Israel in 1948. As such, there has been great speculation as to who might be part of the end-time cast of players. The following is written to bring to your awareness a man who has been a major mover and shaker behind the world scenes and who is now becoming more public as a result of his global projects. Because of his seemingly passive understanding of life, he has been considered daft or incapable of anything of great importance. His title and lineage alone are reasons to keep your eye on him. However, his whole being, his logos, what he is, what he does, what he believes, and what he says, beg a deeper look at Prince Charles, heir to the oldest and most powerful throne in the world. Katie Lane saying the sound is very intermittent. That is a shame indeed. If is anyone else having that problem, please let me know. I'll hit the record button and then at least we'll get the rest of the stream. I should have hit the record button at the start. See, this is what happens when you take time off. I never should have stopped, should I? So, continuing. The incredible fascination I have with British royalty, and specifically Prince Charles, began when I applied for my first library card at 12 years of age. Not knowing where to begin reading, I asked the librarian to help me. That kind lady instructed me to follow as she went to a corner of the huge room, Pulling a book off a shelf, the librarian said, "You can begin with this one, and when you are finished, you can read the rest of the books on this shelf and then those on the shelf beneath it." While I do not remember the exact name, it was on the early life of Queen Elizabeth I. Good Queen Bess. I did exactly what the librarian suggested and read the rest of the books on that shelf about Queen Elizabeth I. The other shelf contained books on Queens Victoria and Elizabeth II and a number of other British royal family members. Over 30 years later, I attended my first United Nations conference in Cairo, Egypt. Although I had written an economic newsletter for a number of years, I was not familiar with the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, or any other global agency. While researching and writing my newsletter in 1992, I became convinced that the fall of the dollar against the German Deutschmark and the Japanese yen was part of a concerted move toward a world currency. However, a world or global currency would not be necessary unless there were a world government. But who? It was not until I went to Cairo that I understood through my conference experience that the United Nations is world government. This conclusion was very obvious throughout the conference proceedings, as was the blatant orchestration by the UN and the US State Department to achieve some type of consensus for the radical global agenda being pushed onto the people of the world. My Cairo experience led to more conferences and a great deal of reading of UN documents. While it was very obvious the UN has tremendous power, after a while it became even more obvious that there must be additional powers behind the UN. The question was, who? I thought it very odd that Britain's Princess Margaret was at the June 1995 United Nations 50th anniversary celebrations in San Francisco. That is odd. While the princess attended a number of functions, I photographed her at the Interfaith Service in Grace Cathedral and at the charter ceremony, which featured all of the ambassadors to the United Nations as well as President Clinton. No reason was given for her attendance, which was not reported in any of the major newspapers other than the San Francisco Examiner. Also, according to the list of royal engagements as found in Majesty, a British magazine that tracks the royal family, her calendar stopped a week before she went to California. Royalty Magazine, Volume 14, Number 1, then published a picture of Westminster Hall with the caption, "The Queen, accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh and Prince Charles, joined international delegates at Westminster Hall to mark the 50th anniversary of the United Nations." This coincided with the 50th anniversary of the charter ceremony in San Francisco. Both were held on June 26th. In a speech given in London at Westminster Hall, now former Prime Minister John Major spoke of the early beginnings of the United Nations. He said, "At a meeting in London, they developed the idea of willing cooperation between free peoples in a world relieved of the menace of aggression. A blueprint called the United Nations Plan of Organized Peace was drawn up by a British Foreign Office team." He also pointed out that Prince Charles's grandfather, King George VI, was the first head of state to visit the General Assembly. It appears all roads lead to England. It looks like we've got a footnote here as well. I didn't know there were footnotes in this book, so I'm going to jump to the back quick and see if I can find that. Oh, yeah. There you are. So that first note is John Major, United Nations, UK, New World, special insert, speech, 1995. Yeah, so they're celebrating the UN. They're attending interfaith events, they being the royal family in this case. And they are being seen in person, publicly supporting, endorsing, giving their approval to the United Nations. That's what she's saying. We've got Drive Jewel over on Odyssey. Hello to you. Hope you're doing well. CS Mally 369 as well on Rumble. What's up? Thank you all. Bitcoin mining, how's it going? Thank you all for letting me know that the sound is okay. And yeah, Bitcoin Mining says, "I think the Club of Rome's First Global Revolution must be worth a reading." Yes, I've got that over there as well. That is definitely worth a read. But I think they have a bit of a warning at the beginning saying you can't read it. But maybe after this one. Who knows? All right, we're good for time. Let's continue. Prince Charles, the Sustainable Prince. This is a section called The Rhodes Factor. It was Cecil Rhodes, the founder of the international diamond industry of Rhodesia, the premier of the Cape, the lawgiver of the Glen Grey Act of Rhodesia, the world statesman, confidant of Queen Victoria and Kaiser Wilhelm, who endowed and set up the Rhodes Scholarship in his 7th will for the purpose of uniting the United States with Great Britain. Rhodes felt there were too few Britons, as, quote, too little of the globe was British territory. If we had retained America, there would be millions more of English living. We are the finest race in the world, and the more of the world we inhabit, the better it is for the human race. Wars would end, too. He further elaborated, the United States was to be recovered and made an integral part of the empire. A system of colonial representation in the British Parliament was to be inaugurated, which would weld together the disjointed members of the empire and thus create a power so great that wars would be rendered impossible. So he just wanted to stop war. He gets such a bad reputation. All he wanted to do was stop war. Those quotes are from Robert Rotberg's book, The Founder, Cecil Rhodes and the Pursuit of Power. That is a 1988 book, which I do not have yet. So he just wants to conquer the world in order to prevent people and force people to stop having wars. So continuing. It was the last of his 7 wills that set up the Rhodes Scholarship Program. While the former wills provided parameters for the trustees who were to bring the world back under British rule. Rhodes called his creed a confession of faith, and it would be carried out through a secret society. In his will, he stipulated the kind of person who should be chosen for the Rhodes Scholarship. Dr. Carroll Quigley, Bill Clinton's mentor at Georgetown and the man who chose him for the Rhodes Scholarship, wrote 2 books that are considered epics in understanding the truth about modern history, Tragedy and Hope, and the Anglo-American Establishment. In his 2nd book, he wrote that the secret society that would be formed by his Rhodes's will was to devote itself to the preservation and expansion of the British Empire, which has been known at various times as Milner's Kindergarten, as the Round Table Group, as the Rhodes Crowd, as the Times Crowd, as the All Souls Group, and as the Cliveden Set. That is from the Anglo-American Establishment. Furthermore, Rhodes outlined men who might be useful members of the secret society, men of ability and enthusiasm who find no suitable way to serve their country under the current political system. He wrote that this is to be a kind of religious brotherhood like the Jesuits, a church for the extension of the British Empire. In looking to determine how to bring the world under British rule, this secret society, according to Quigley, quote, caused the Boer War of 1899 to 1902. It set up and controls the Rhodes Trust. It created the Union of South Africa in 1906 to 1910, has been the most powerful single influence in All Souls, Balliol, and new colleges at Oxford for more than a generation. It has controlled the Times for more than 50 years, with the exception of the 3 years, 1999 to 1922. It publicised the idea of and the name British Commonwealth of Nations in the period 1908 to 1918. It was the chief influence in Lloyd George's war administration in 1917 to 1919 and dominated the British delegation to the Peace Conference of 1919. Excuse me, it's got a tickly throat. It had a great deal to do with the formation and management of the League of Nations and of the system of mandates. It founded the Royal Institute for International Affairs. There you go, that's that royal charter that I was talking about. In 1919 and still controls it. It was one of the chief influences on British policy toward Ireland, Palestine, and India in the period of 1917 to 1945. Quite a critical period for all those places. It was a very important influence on the policy of appeasement of Germany during the years 1920 to 1940, and it controlled, and still controls, to a very considerable extent, the sources and the writing of the history of British imperial and foreign policy since the Boer War. So that's really important. That's just this classic idea of history is written by the victors, isn't it? So, continuing. It should be noted that the American counterpart to the Royal Institute of International Affairs is the Council on Foreign Relations, which was founded by David Rockefeller and is still controlled by him. American benefactors to the RIIA include J.D. Rockefeller, Ford Motor Company, and Carnegie Trustees. Interestingly, many of the CEOs from American companies and multinational corporations who are partners with the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, or both. In addition, there is an interconnectedness between U.S. corporations, as many chief executive officers serve as directors on each other's board of directors. This kind of close relationship also exists on the global level, where many corporations work with a number of international organizations, such as the International Chamber of Commerce, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the World Business Academy, and the International Institute for Sustainable Development. The PWBLF partners with many of these organizations as well. Of particular interest with regard to the Milner Group was how the world would be ruled once under the British Empire. According to Quigley, they feared the British Empire might fall into the same difficulty and destroy British idealism and British liberties by the tyranny necessary to hold on to a reluctant empire. And any effort to hold an empire by tyranny they regarded as doomed to failure. The group feared that all culture and civilization would go down to destruction because of our inability to construct some kind of political unit larger than the national state, just as Greek culture and civilization in the 4th century BC went down to destruction because of the Greeks' inability to construct some kind of political unit larger than the city-state. This was the fear that had animated Rhodes, and it was the same fear that was driving the Milner Group to transform the British Empire into a commonwealth of nations and then place that system within a league of nations. That's footnote 8. I think the last few footnotes are all from the same book, but I just want to double check. Carroll Quigley's Anglo-American Establishment, 1981. So the last Quigley quotes have all come from that book. So it's this like centralization of power on bigger and bigger scales. So you start off with the family unit, and then the community, and then the village, the town, the city, the district or county, then nation. What's next, right? And that's what it is. It's just centralization, control on bigger and bigger portions of land, and bigger groupings of the population. So continuing. The United Nations became the successor to the League of Nations in 1945. And remember, 1945 is the year that Joan Veon says we got world government started in this year. While there are a number of major differences between the two organizations, the biggest difference was an empowered United Nations, as the decisions of the League of Nations Council were essentially recommendations, whereas the decisions of the United Nations Security Council are legally binding upon the members of the United Nations. That's interesting, because I've heard the United Nations described as a paper tiger. It's just a paper tiger. It can't enforce anything. It can't do anything. But John Veon's claiming that these are legally binding agreements upon the members. And remember, we talked about on a previous live stream that membership in the United Nations is almost at 100% of all the countries of the place where we live. They're nearly all signed up at this point. Up until its 50th anniversary, I had not seen any British royalty connection with the United Nations, the successor to the League of Nations. Okay, sorry, that sounded a bit weird the way I read it. she's saying that the League of Nations was succeeded by the United Nations, and it wasn't until 50 years after that happened that she saw any connection with British royalty. Although I had found a speech given by Prince Charles in 1992 commending the Brundtland Commission for their work in bringing the term sustainable development into everyone's vocabulary, there appeared to be no direct connection until I attended the 51st meeting of the IMF World Bank in October 1996. So far in this book, she's mentioning not the right groups and organizations, but she's certainly on the same kind of breadcrumb trail as the other authors that we've discussed on the channel, such as G. Edward Griffin, such as Joan and the Milner-Fabian conspiracy. And Quigley, of course, we haven't read through his books on the channel, but the Cutting Through the Matrix book club has just finished a full read-through and analysis of Tragedy and Hope. That whole playlist is up on Alan Watts CTTM's YouTube channel, with one of the discussions I hosted and led the conversation. That was a lot of fun, but we all sort of took turns, and that's a really amazing resource for anybody who wants to dive into that book, which is massive. It's about 1,400 pages or something. But she's basically she's picking up that trail that a lot of the other authors we've read are also going down, including people who still put out a lot of content and work, such as Jay Dyer, such as Richard Grove, James Corbett. I'm thinking about as well Patrick Wood. I heard Patrick Wood do a great 3-hour interview on Doc Malik's podcast, which is very good, all about technocracy and the origins of technocracy. And he was talking about the United Nations and how David Rockefeller, or the Rockefellers in general, donated the land on which the United Nations was built over on the east coast of America, which the land used to be slaughterhouses, and it was the biggest abattoir in the country or in the area or something like that. So all these modern day researchers who are looking at the same sources and analyzing the same groups, like Alan Watt talked a lot about Royal Institute for International Affairs and Council on Foreign Relations. This is the real sort of web. Trilateral Commission as well. Patrick Wood is an excellent source on Trilateral Commission. This is kind of the web that is left out of the mainstream, which is much more likely to be a source of actual control and power and influence in the world, right? Give me a sec. I just got to clear my throat again. Okay, back to the book. Although I had, hang on, I just read that bit, didn't I? So the thing I wanted to mention there is sustainable development being mentioned as far back as 1992. And the footnote for that is number 10. Just want to quickly have a look at, and that is the Prince of Wales on Population and the Environment. That was a speech given in 1992, published in Population and Development Review, number 18, June. So he's very impressed with this concept of sustainable development, so much so that he is designing and endorsing his own 15-minute city down in Poundbury in England. There appeared to be no direct connection until I attended the meeting of the IMF and World Bank. Yeah. It was there I happened upon a booklet directly connecting the Prince of Wales with the United Nations and World Bank. The booklet, published by the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum, is entitled Business as Partners in Development: Creating Wealth for Countries, Companies and Communities, and is in collaboration with the World Bank and the United Nations Development Programme. What the book revealed is that the Prince is a very major player on the global scene, more so than we realize. The question to be asked and answered is, who is Prince Charles? I didn't know this book has pictures, but there you go. We've got a picture coming up on the next page. So, next section, Prince Charles. Interestingly, Prince Charles was born Charles Philip Arthur George Mountbatten Windsor in 1948. The same year, Israel was birthed by the UN. Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting. So the same year that Prince Charles was born is the same year that I wonder. So is that the year that the Balfour Declaration was? Oh, that would have been much earlier, wouldn't it? Actually, but Israel was birthed by the UN in the same year that Charles Philip Arthur George was born. In 1969, his mother made him Prince of Wales in a ceremony at Caernarvon Castle in Wales. His investiture marked the start of his royal duties as he became a Knight of the Garter. It is members of the Order of the Garter that comprise the Queen's inner circle of confidants. According to his biographer Anthony Holden, at the same moment Prince Charles was being invested across the world, 3 men were preparing to land on the moon. As the 21st Prince of Wales, the future Charles III has an abundance of titles which include Earl of Chester, Duke of Cornwall, Duke of Rothesay, Earl of Carrick, Baron Renfrew, Lord of the Isles and Great Steward of Scotland, Knight of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, Knight of the Most Ancient and Most Noble Order of the Thistle, and Great Master and Principal Knight Grand Cross of the Most Honourable Order of the Bath. These are ridiculous. It is the Order of the Bath into which Presidents Ronald Reagan and George Bush were knighted after each left office. Whoa, I didn't know that. So the Order of the Bath contains George Bush and Ronald Reagan. Fantastic. So he's in very good company. And this is a picture of the Queen placing a coronet on the head of a 20-year-old Prince Charles. There he is, down on his knees. So this next section is Prince Charles's lineage. Prince Charles is literally related to everyone of royal blood in the world, along with a few who are not, like Charles Darwin. Right, that's a hell of a statement right there. Everyone of royal blood in the world. According to the English genealogist Gerald Paget, who spent most of his 92 years tracing the lineage of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles, His Royal Highness's breeding is the most important in the world. Well, there you go. This ties in very nicely to the kind of eugenic view, the elitist view, this view that some blood is more valuable than others and needs to be kept pure and needs to be the recipient of power and influence and wealth in the world and elevated above the common stock. He is heir to the world's greatest position that is determined solely by heredity. In the introduction to Paget's monumental work, The Lineage and Ancestry of His Royal Highness Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, that's another book that probably worth trying to get hold of. Sorry, bear with me a sec. I'm just going to put a little green tab. As I've said before, this is the only thing I don't like about reading books is that it always ends up with me discovering a whole bunch of other books that I want to buy. But The Lineage and Ancestry of His Royal Highness Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, is by Paget. If anybody wants to dig up a copy and donate it to the channel, why not? But reading a quote now from that book. His Royal Highness is cousin or nephew in varying degrees of all the 6 wives of King Henry VIII. He has many descents from the royal houses of Scotland, France, Germany, Austria, Denmark, Sweden and Norway, Spain, Portugal, Russia and the Netherlands. In addition to Charlemagne and William the Conqueror, he numbers amongst his ancestors such historic characters as King Alfred the Great, King Harold, who was slain at Hastings, Llewellyn, the great Prince of North Wales, Owain Glyndwr, Warwick the Kingmaker, Margaret, Countess of Salisbury, the Protector Edward Seymour, the Duke of Somerset, and his rival John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland, Louis IX, King of France, the Emperor Rudolph of Habsburg, Queen I, Empress of Russia, Robert Bruce, Mary Queen of Scots. But he doesn't mention here, what's the guy called? Vlad the Impaler, who was based on, who Dracula was based on, right? I forget that guy's name, but then I'm sure there's a clip of him somewhere saying, "Oh yes, actually, I'm related to Vlad the Impaler," you know. But that might be in the book somewhere else. Paget notes, links through marriages or a common ancestor can be found to such diverse people as Genghis Khan and 12 presidents of the United States of America. Or maybe it's Genghis Khan that I'm thinking of. For the last, see Burke's Presidential Families of the United States of America. Well, that's wild. Prince Charles biographer Anthony Holden goes further and explains that the prince, quote, descends over and over again from Charlemagne and Frederick Barbarossa and all the great dynasties, Habsburg and Hohenstaufen, Guelph and Hohenzollern, Bavaria and Saxony, Hesse and Baden. In Italy, his forefathers include the Dukes of Savoy and the Emperor Frederick II, and the medieval kings of Sicily, as also the Orsini of Rome. Pope Nicholas III was his ancestral uncle. In Spain, they include Ferdinand and Isabella, and thus El Cid himself. The prince's Anglo-Saxon and Danish royal forefathers sprang from Dark Age kings who incarnated the storm spirit Woden, after whom Wednesday is named. And among his pagan Celtic royal forefathers were King Neil of the Nine Hostages and the dynamic Iron Age scroll kings of Tara, the great sanctuary of ancient Ireland. Through the Lusignan Crusader kings of Cyprus, titular kings of Jerusalem, Prince Charles descends a millennium further back from King Tiridates the Great, the first Christian monarch of all, under whom Armenia was converted in AD 314, before even Rome itself, and thus from the divine Parthian imperial house of Arsaces, which reigned over Persia and Babylonia, and was in its time the mightiest dynasty in the ancient world. So that is quite it's quite a CV, isn't it? It's quite a resume. Here she continues, I have it on good authority that Prince Charles is Jewish through his father's father, who was a German Jewish banker. If you compare Charles's lineage to the kingdoms and beasts in Daniel chapters 2 and 7, he descends from those mentioned. The rise of King Charles. The rise of Prince Charles. Charles is a complex man with many sides. He is a man of action, having served in the Royal Navy in a number of junior and senior command positions. He is a helicopter pilot and has logged over 900 hours flying a wide variety of jet fighter planes, including the Chipmunk, Spitfire, Nimrod, Phantom, Jet Provost, and Harrier T-4, to name a few. He enjoys polo and is an expert skier. He is an artist and a musician, as well as a businessman, maintaining a business that exports organic products throughout Europe and England, in addition to caring for his inherited lands. Charles is a 21st century Renaissance man, a man for all seasons. There is one other title he could be given besides the one I have given him, and that is Philosopher King. Unlike his uncle, the Duke of Windsor, who never worked after he stepped down from the throne in 1936, Prince Charles oversees a number of trusts, is involved in organic farming and homeopathic medicine, has been critical of and active in the field of architecture, creating an institute of architecture to teach classical thinking and methods to its students in an effort to revive classical architecture which blends buildings with nature. Has worked behind the scenes pushing the huge radical environmental agenda of the United Nations into the forefront of world politics, and, if not the key, is now one of the leading figures on the face of the globe creating public-private partnerships in developing countries. This entity, the public-private partnership, is the new form of governance, a polite term for government worldwide. It's just amazing. 1997. Boom. I was just listening to James Corbett on an interview recently talking about the differences between this word. You got the word government and now it's becoming governance, right? John Veon was telling us back in 1997. Amazing. His non-profit organization, the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum, is spearheading this governmental change along with major multinational corporations, most of which have more money than many third world countries. In a speech at the 1988 European Environment Conference, the Prince said, "There is a growing I'll try and do a Prince Charles accent, should I? There's a growing realization that..." I can't do a posh, inbred, blue blood, parasitical accent, I'm afraid. I'll just do a generic accent. "There's a growing realization that we are not separate from nature. A subconscious feeling that we need to restore a feeling of harmony with nature and a proper sense of respect and awe for the great mystery of the natural order of the universe. We are beginning to realize that whatever we do to nature, whether it is on the grandest scale or just in our own gardens, is ultimately something that we are doing to our own deepest selves. In order to understand what he is doing, we must discern the personal beliefs that guide him." So the next section is the Prince of Wales and religion. Not happy with the Christian faith, Charles began to search for the meaning of life in the late 60s at Cambridge. According to his biographer, he began a tentative inquiry into the field of what its practitioners referred to as psychical research or parapsychology, and which its adversaries ridiculed as dabbling in the occult. That is very interesting indeed. I got sent a video, short video on Instagram, which was about, apparently there's something come out called the, what is it called? Telepathy papers. Some person on Joe Rogan has been talking about, there's telepathy papers and telepathy might be real. And the video that I saw was a gentleman with a stack of books, and he was saying, yeah, this stuff has been studied. There was an organization in the UK called the Society for Psychical Research, and they did tens of thousands of experiments on telepathy. You've got Rupert Sheldrake's work, which includes the sense of being stared at. There's all sorts of research that's gone into it. So it's not a new thing. It's very well studied. Remote viewing, for example, had a lot of military interest. It's well studied, and he was arguing that this telepathy papers thing is a limited hangout because what it's leaving out is this deep, detailed 100 plus year history of the study of telepathy and human beings' psychic abilities. So that phrase psychical research just reminded me of that video, right? So curious that Charles rejects Christianity and starts studying parapsychology and psychical research, which is kind of poo-pooed as dabbling in the occult by some people. In the mid-70s, South African-born writer, explorer, and mystic Lawrence van der Post, who was also a friend of the Queen Mother's, became a spiritual counselor to Charles. That's a name we got to look up, isn't it? Lawrence van der Post. Okay, we'll use... maybe I'll use a sticky for this one. Yeah, somebody I just might make a good bit of info for next preamble ramble. I'll put arrows. So this person, Lawrence van der Post, was a spiritual counselor to Charles. It was van der Post who helped him explore the natural world as well as the inner world, where the outer depends on the inner. He went on to study Buddhism and Hinduism, mixing the relationship of the individual to the environment in economic, social, and spiritual terms. The convictions that Charles began to form, what he was soon to say about alternative medicine, architecture, and the environment, sprang from a spiritual feeling for the mystical in mankind. I'm just going to check the footnote for that. Number 20. That's a quote from Jonathan Dimbleby's biography, which is just called The Prince of Wales, published in 1994. Okay, so next section is the Gaia hypothesis. Charles was greatly influenced by James Lovelock, who formulated the Gaia hypothesis, a belief based on the Greek goddess Gaia, the Earth Mother, today known as the worship of the Earth. That's another name that sounds familiar as well, James Lovelock. And the concept of holism, which is based on the principles of harmony, balance, and the interconnectedness of natural phenomena, combining them with a search for inner awareness. Another way to understand holism is to realize that it adopts the evolutionary principle that man is equal to all other forms of nature. He does not have dominance over the earth as found in Genesis 1. So if you kill a fly or a little piece of algae or something, or you step on a daisy and you crush that plant, you're killing yourself. Harming the environment in any way is the harming of the human, because the human is inseparable and just another piece of nature, just another piece of the natural world with no special characteristics or abilities or anything to distinguish him or her from the natural world. Just another animal, in other words. Another way to understand holism is to realize that it adopts the evolutionary principle that man is... I just read that, but no. In the 1970s, as a result of his newfound holistic philosophy, which is a return to nature, Mother Earth, the prince started to involve himself with organic farming, architecture, and homeopathic medicine. When one analyzes what holism is, considering man as a part of nature, it means man now evolves. Holism is evolution at its finest. Known as the Green Prince or Eco Prince, Charles, like most radical environmentalists, elevates the position of the environment to one of dominance over man, an inversion of Genesis 1. From his first speech on the environment given at the Countryside Conference in 1970 to his global push for sustainable development and public-private partnerships, the environment is key. Whoops. Everything just closed. How did I do that? Oh, it's okay. I got it back. I panicked for a second there. I thought I'd just cancelled all the stuff that I was doing in all these windows. But we're still going. His global push for sustainable development and public-private partnerships, the environment is key to changing society, how we live, where we live, and our values. The next section is Charles the Environmental Businessman. When Charles attended Trinity College in the late 1960s, he studied archaeology, anthropology, and history, all of which are key with regard to the environment and architecture. In 1981, he and a somewhat maverick group of businessmen formed Business in Community, which today is the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum. Business in Community came out of a 1980 Anglo-American conference on community involvement, where British tycoons learned of America's success in cleaning up its cities through public-private partnerships, in which the local community joined with businesses in order to afford the changes necessary to revitalize major cities. Public-private partnerships were first used in the 1940s and 50s when the city of Pittsburgh joined forces with Richard King Mellon and other businessmen to revitalize Pittsburgh. I want to check the footnote for that. 22, that is from Remaking the Cities, Proceedings of the 1988 International Conference in Pittsburgh. Years later, in March 1988, Charles attended the Remaking of the Cities Conference, where he delivered the keynote address. The Remaking the Cities Conference was a first in history, as it was a joint partnership between the American and British Institutes of Architecture. According to conference chairman David Lewis, it was Prince Charles who, when he visited the American Institute of Architects in Washington, D.C., initiated the idea of an international forum on urban regeneration to be held in Pittsburgh. The conference had 5 workshops, one of which was specifically on creating new partnerships for development. Whether the residents of Pittsburgh or conference participants knew it or not, they were discussing the same UN environmental concepts and agenda that was later unveiled at the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. By way of human interest, I interviewed one businessman from Pittsburgh who had close and continuous contact with Prince Charles while he was in Pittsburgh. He mentioned that he rode in the prince's Rolls Royce while he showed the prince the city. When I asked if the prince brought his Rolls Royce with him, he replied that he was told by the State Department that the royal family has a Rolls Royce that is kept permanently in Washington. I had the impression that it was kept by the State Department and not the British Embassy because I clarified that point. Prince Charles is protected not by the Secret Service, but by the Department of State when he visits. This man said the prince was very well informed and excited about the future of cities and towns, stating the citizens should envision what they want in their town. This concept is part of the envisioning process that is used in getting selected people to express what they want to see in their town. The city where I grew up, Racine, Wisconsin, has just been named a sustainable city as a result of Sam Johnson, a businessman who serves on the President's Commission on Sustainable Development. Many residents have absolutely no idea what sustainable development really means, let alone how it is applied to them. Public-private partnerships. Interestingly enough, it was in the early 1970s that the United Nations adopted the environment as its mantra. Think about the implications. All of us share the environment. It is a common denominator no matter where you live in the world. The only way to change the laws of every country and to take control is to make the environment the focal point. That's a really good point. Like, how else are you going to get people to be global citizens and to accept these unprecedented, crazy, technocratic systems of control and data gathering and monitoring, and surveillance? Today, continuing, it is the goal of the United Nations to pass laws on the global level that will then be ratified by all of the member states. These laws will impact all of society in every country, and eventually the world will be ruled by global governance, which is only possible through public-private partnerships. The key to governance in the 21st century is the partnership between business, the private sector, and government. What is public-private partnership? Public-private partnership is just what it says it is. First, it is a business arrangement sealed by an agreement or, in some cases, a handshake. The terms of the partnership will vary according to partners and objectives. Second, the parties in the partnership are public and private entities. Public entities refer to government, local, county, state, federal, or global agencies. Private refers to non-governmental groups, such as foundations, non-profit groups, corporations, and individuals. Okay, this is critical stuff here. PPP. Come back to this. But yeah, it's the private entities. Who are they? Well, they're unelected for a start. They're NGOs, non-governmental groups. They are foundations, non-profits, corporations, and just very wealthy people. For example, foundations could include the Ford, Rockefeller, or the local Good Works Foundation. Non-profits could refer to non-governmental or organizations like the Prince of Wales Business Leaders Forum, the Nature Conservancy, the Sierra Club. Sierra Club. Oh, I heard someone talking about that recently. Who was it? I can't remember. The World Wildlife Federation, Planned Parenthood, or NOW. And corporations could be any corporation from a small one to a multinational like Exxon, Johnson Wax, 3M, Black & Decker, or Giant Foods. Lastly, individuals could be John Jones, a businessman, rancher, or dentist. And we got a bit of a diagram on this page opposite, which is the multi-stakeholder partnership, building bridges towards sustainable development. So this looks like a page out of one of the, I don't know, no, maybe Joan put this together. All these quotes here are from, so you can see the quotes here from different chapters from Agenda 21. We'll just finish this page and then we'll go back and have a look at that. A public-private partnership will always have as its goal a business-making venture which requires some form of governance. The question is, since the players will vary in experience and wealth, Who has the most power? We know from life itself that whoever has the most money has the power. For example, when a public-private partnership is comprised of government entities such as the County Department of Environmental Initiatives, the State Department of Environmental Resources, a number of private entities like a land trust foundation, and the Nature Conservancy non-profit, along with a corporation such as Black & Decker, the players with the most money control the partnership. In this case, it would be the Nature Conservancy, with assets of over $1 billion, and Black & Decker Corporation with a capitalization of $1.6 billion. Representative government loses. Right, let's have a look at this multi-stakeholder partnership. Building bridges towards sustainable development. And the text on this is tiny. So let's zoom in, because I can do that. Boom. All right, we'll do this top paragraph first. So this is from Chapter 27, Agenda 21. Hopefully that's coming through all right. One of the major challenges facing the world community as it seeks to replace unsustainable development patterns with environmentally sound and sustainable development is the need to activate a sense of common purpose on behalf of all sectors of society. The chances of forging such a sense of purpose will depend on the willingness of all sectors to participate in genuine social partnership and dialogue, while recognizing the independent roles, responsibilities, and special capacities of each. Next part is from the preamble, which is Chapter 1 of Agenda 21. Agenda 21 addresses the pressing problems of today and also aims to prepare the world for the challenges of the next century. So don't let anyone tell you there aren't plans that are looking at the next 100 years, right? Because the people who wrote this are thinking about the next 100 years. Kind of like Charles Galton Darwin was thinking about the next 1,000,000 years in his book, The Next 1,000,000 Years, which I read on this channel. Agenda 21 addresses the pressing problems. It reflects a global consensus on development and environmental cooperation. So that thing there, global consensus. Okay, that's what they're establishing. And if you go against that, if you disagree with it, if you have arguments and evidence and reasons that you think it's illegitimate or wrong or factually incorrect, then you're wrong because the consensus is right. We all know what it's like to be on the wrong end of a consensus. I think many of us watching this probably felt that over the last 2020 to 2023. Its successful implementation is first and foremost the responsibility of governments. So it's up to the governments to establish a global consensus and then force all their citizens to fall in line with it. And of course, they don't need to force you to fall in line with it. They just indoctrinate your children to fall in line with it when they're at school, so that when you die and your children grow up to take your place as the people running the, pressing the buttons and the adults in the society, then they're already conditioned to be thinking about what it means to be a world citizen, what sustainable development means, how having children is selfish and damages the environment, and we're a part of the environment and we have to love and respect it because we're just another animal and we have a undue impact on the systems of the world, and et cetera, right? So that's how they do it. The governments indoctrinate the children with the global consensus, and that's how you establish it over a few generations. Okay. Hang on a sec, let me clear my throat again. Okay, so this bit down here is from Chapter 30, Agenda 21. Business and industry, including transnational corporations and their representative organizations, should be full participants in the implementation and evaluation of activities related to Agenda 21. So you notice that they're just focusing on the people who already have positions of influence and power and wealth, because they're just saying it's the responsibility of governments and it's the responsibility of businesses and industry and corporations and organizations. So if you're just like Joe or Jane Smith in the street, the average person, like, this has nothing to do with you. You're just going to get it regardless of what you think about it and whether you like it or not, you're just going to be browbeaten, manipulated, coerced, mind controlled into it. And if you go against it, then they'll just wait till you die, because this is a 100-year plan. So it doesn't even matter if you go against it, so long as they can still have your children for 40 hours a week in the government schools, and you have no oversight over what's being taught and what's being said to them. They can roll this out pretty much unimpeded and without a problem, right? This is why people who homeschool are the legitimate heroes fighting back against this sort of thing. And not everybody can homeschool. I get that. It's out of reach for a lot of people due to the economic situation that's been that we've been put in as well. So I know the solutions are not that simple, but I'm just saying this is how it works. So that being aware of it and speaking out about it is almost like not enough. They're like, yeah, you can spend the rest of your life. I can spend the rest of my life, broadcasting on my YouTube channel. They're like, yeah, carry on, do it. So what? Because they're still getting the children, and they're still getting their message into the minds of the young people, and they know their plans go even past the lifespan of the young people that they're indoctrinating, right? But the plans involve the existing power structures continuing to exist, and consolidating. Let's read this little bit down here, which is about NGOs. Non-government. This is from Chapter 27, Agenda 21. Non-governmental organizations play a vital role in the shaping and implementation of participatory democracy. Their credibility lies in the responsible and constructive role they play in society. Formal and informal organizations, as well as grassroots movements, should be recognized as patterns in the implementation of Agenda 21. Yeah, so it's an agenda. It's being implemented. It's being carried out. It's not being voted on. It's not being voluntarily taken up and participated in by those who want. Nope, it's being implemented by way of all the existing power structures, organizations, and people and groups that have authority and influence and wealth and power. And you can see here we got the government, so it's national, state, local, multilateral and bilateral organizations. The private sector, it's corporations and multinationals, business and industry associations, small and micro enterprises. Well, I mean, they all got wiped out during the Big C event, didn't they? Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. So I think that bit is questionable. I think the plan is more so to get rid of the small and micro enterprises. And then you've got civil society, which is non-governmental organizations. So these are NGOs, diverse, multifaceted. Their perspectives and operations may be local, national, regional, global, ideology-oriented, broad public interest, or private. So it could be a private interest, right? So it could be an NGO serving a private interest, as long as they're aligned with Agenda 21 and the implementation of it, they'll be allowed to survive, no doubt. Small, poorly funded grassroots to large, professionally staffed bodies. Well, I'm sure the small, poorly funded grassroots movements are going to make a lot of progress, aren't they? Sure. And then individual or networked. So there you go. That's multi-stakeholder, public-private partnerships on a page. I'll zoom out a bit. I'll give you you might want to get a screen grab of this page, in fact. We'll put the light up. I don't know, you might want to get a screen grab of this page. Or you might not. It's up to you. Ronnie Cooper says, I'm a consensus denier. I like that phrase. I do like that phrase. That's good. I'm going to find ways to use that. I like it. Rather than being a climate change denier, you can be a consensus denier. Okay, let me get the lighting right on this, because it's a bit... That's all right, isn't it? All right, let me have a sip. Turbs says, hard to think this book was written 28 years ago. It could have been written yesterday. Is it 28 years? Yeah, it is as well, isn't it? That is bonkers. 28 years, yeah. So, way ahead of the curve, might go some way to explain why there's not many copies of it available, and they are pretty darn expensive for a small 100-page book. But I like this kind of book with just very distilled message. It's all meat and no veg. It's all killer, no filler. So, yeah, it's good. Okay, we've got about half an hour left. I'll read a few more pages and then we'll wrap it up. So, continuing, we're down here, weren't we? Public-private partnerships were unveiled in June 1996 at the United Nations Conference on Human Settlements, Habitat 2, held in Istanbul. In an interview I conducted with Dr. Wally Ndow, Secretary General of the Habitat 2 conference, he said, quote, "We have got to a point where we cannot not partner with the private sector, as governments, as the civil society, as NGOs, but also as people active in international developments such as the UN. That is what Istanbul tried to convey." So we cannot not partnership. Like, this is the only thing we can do now. We have no options and there's no other possibility. There's nowhere else to go. In a follow-up interview with Dr. Noel Brown, former director of the United Nations Environment Programme and current special advisor to the Group of 77, I've never heard of them before, but he said of public-private partnerships, quote, "I believe that the future of the UN will rest on effective partnering with the private sector, with business and industry, but I also believe that the environment and the environmental community must also rethink its mission and redefine its role as we enter the phase of globalization and as we are on the threshold of the 21st century." While this concept may appear to be new, public-private partnerships have been used for the last 20 years in America as a method of providing financing to low-income families. HUD and its Office of Community Planning and Development has used public-private partnerships to create affordable housing since 1990. In addition, Maryland, Oregon, and Minnesota have implemented state-level public-private partnerships. It should be noted that as public-private partnerships continue to rise in the United States, our Constitution is being eroded. Yeah, so if it's being used to finance low-income families, that's very in line with socialism, isn't it? You take from one place and you take it from some people and you give it to other people, and that necessitates some sort of government, some sort of group which makes those decisions, who gets what and who gets how much of what they have taken away from them to be doled out, to those who have less. And so this is where public-private partnerships kind of start to align with the things that we read in, for example, Fabian Freeway and the Milner-Fabian conspiracy most recently. Okay, next section, Club of Rome. There are several books that influenced Charles and helped to form his worldview. One is the 1972 Club of Rome report called Limits to Growth, which, because of its importance, is highlighted here. The Club of Rome started when Dr. Aurelio Pace, an Italian industrial manager, economist, and visionary, brought 30 people together from 10 countries to discuss the present and future predicament of man. From this initial meeting came the organization now called the Club of Rome, which has been described as an invisible college. I want to find out where that quote's from. That's footnote 23. That's actually from the book Limits to Growth. I didn't expect that. So in the book Limits to Growth by Dennis Meadows and Donella H., apparently they refer to the Club of Rome as Invisible College, which is not suspicious or shady or suspect at all, is it? The experts who came together did not represent government or the United Nations, we are told, but were from the fields of pollution, agriculture, resources, population, socio-political trends, and capital, to name a few. The Volkswagen Foundation funded their project. Volkswagen Foundation. I didn't know the VW Foundation was a thing. But apparently they funded the project that led to Limits to Growth. It should be noted that Volkswagen is one of the advisory members of the PWBLF. The world model they created monitored 5 trends of global concern: accelerating industrialization, rapid population growth, widespread malnutrition, depletion of non-renewable resources, and a deteriorating environment. They said these trends are all interconnected in many ways, and their development is measured in decades or centuries rather than in months or years. They concluded the following. 1. If the present growth trends in world population, industrialization, pollution, food production, and resource depletion continue unchanged, the limits to growth on this planet would be reached sometime within the next 100 years. There's that 100 years again. It is possible to alter these growth trends and to establish a condition of ecological and economic stability that is sustainable far into the future. The state of global equilibrium could be designed so that the material needs of each person on Earth are satisfied and each person has an equal opportunity to realize his individual human potential. 3. If the world's people decide to strive for this second outcome rather than the first, the sooner they begin working to attain it, the greater their chances of success. Furthermore, these social, economic, environmental planners called for every phase of each person's life to be planned. What? All right. I mean, we kind of know this because this is the wet dream of all the technocrats, is to have everything driven by data, which is all fed into an AI, which gives you the answer that you cannot question or escape. Patrick Wood, again, the 3-hour podcast on Doc Malik's show with Patrick Wood, you can listen to it free on Doc Malik's website, is phenomenal. It really encapsulates the history of the movement, technocracy, and what it's shooting for, and how alarming it is, the number of out-and-out, unashamed technocrats that are surrounding the current red team leader in the United States. So, and this is part of it, the planning the phase of each person's life. Perhaps our greatest example of what kind of utopia they have in mind can be best seen by looking at some of the policies in China. They advocate non-growth policies and suggest the following. 1. The population has access to 100% effective birth control. 2. The average desired family size is 2 children. And 3. The economic system endeavors to maintain average industrial output per capita at about the 1975 level. Lastly, they concluded that non-growth policies have been advocated by others before them, such as Plato, Aristotle, and Malthus. Yes, indeed. Not a lot of people know. I certainly didn't know until relatively recently that Plato is kind of the originator of a lot of this thinking, of this idea of a philosopher kings, which was mentioned earlier in this book to refer to the king formerly known as Prince Charles. Philosopher kings being the most fit to rule over, and then a stratified society going down with a kind of caste system, and a centrally planned economy and society. That was all began with Plato. So continuing, it should be noted that the year this landmark report was published was 1972, which was the year the United Nations held their first environmental conference. Probably just a coincidence, though. The policies stated above have been incorporated into all of the UN environmental and governmental policies, which are advocated by both the Clinton administration and Prince Charles. Excuse me. Another influential book cited by Dimbleby was Small is Beautiful by Fritz Schumacher. There's another book recommendation for anybody who wrote, human scale thinking must have a spiritual content. We have to put back what our dominant industrialist, materialist, scientific worldview leaves out. The omitted area is what we mean by spiritual. The concept of sustainable development is spiritual, and it does embrace the non-growth policy. All right, I might leave it there, actually. For now, we're on page 39, and I think that's a good place to stop. Small is Beautiful by Fritz Schumacher. That is the last book recommended there. Let me find a bookmark. All right, so that's the first sort of third of the book. We'll try and spread this out over 3 live streams, I think. But what do you think? Good stuff. I am still quite blown away by how old this book is, but how on point Joan Veon was. And I'm keen to find that clip that I played at the intro. I'm keen to find the full copy of that. If anyone can find the full speech, I think that'd be worth checking out. Because she mentioned in that clip that she's read 10 to 12,000 pages of UN documentation. And in the beginning of this book, she mentioned that she'd read, what did she say, 2,000 pages. So I think that that speech is from a much later time, probably around the time of her publishing her second book, which is on the shelf up here. And as you can see, yeah, it's a lot meatier. It's more along the size and lines of Milner-Fabian conspiracy, 400 pages. And let's have a look. I can't remember off the top of my head when it was published. 1999, 2000. Right, so actually not that much later she brought this one out. Okay, and that one, as you saw, is even more expensive and sort of rarer and harder to find than the Prince Charles book, but well-read person. As we so often find, the people who can give us the best assessment and description of what's going on tend to be the ones who do the most reading and have a good collection of books. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to pass myself off as an authority. I'll be completely frank and upfront that I haven't read most of the books that I have. I have them because I'm worried about censorship and information disappearing because of the slippery nature of digital information. And I'm set up this channel and started doing these broadcasts so that I have a reason to work my way through and get these books read, and I can share them with other people, and then we can all benefit instead of just me on my own reading them, right? But the people who do know the books and do a lot of reading and do have and are able to point to the documentation, they're the people who are better at getting to the heart of what is actually going on. So I'll give you another example. This one here is this is the Earth Summit Agenda 21. This is a really massive publication. As you can see, it's actually like a A4 sized book, published from the United Nations. There's their little flat Earth logo divided into 33 different sections with the laurels on either side of it. And this is the Agenda 21 document itself, right? And this actually, in this one, it says something quite interesting, which I'll show you. I'll bring my little book cam back for a minute. So what it says at the beginning of this one, you can see that, is reproduction and dissemination of the document in electronic or printed format is encouraged, provided acknowledgement is made of the role of the United Nations in making it available. So that's quite unusual. Usually you see a thing saying you shouldn't do that. And actually above here it says this book may not be copied or reproduced by any means, electronic, mechanical, or otherwise, which is kind of strange, isn't it? Because right underneath it, it says it's encouraged. So that is confusing. Mixed messaging from the first page. But yeah, you can see in here, they got the preamble, conservation and management of resources, strengthening the role of major groups. Massive document, all sorts of stuff in here. But yeah, that exists. So my point is that these documents exist, and the people who read them and do that boring kind of legwork of trawling through tend to discover the plans. And then they write their own much shorter books that we can read because we don't have time to read we don't all have time to read 10,000 pages of documents, do we? So, yeah, what do you think? What do you think about that? I've seen quite a bit of stuff going on in the comments, so I'm not going to be able to get to everyone, but I will have a quick scan. ESP. James Lovelock did a lot at Jodrell Bank. I think he wrote a book called Gaia. Okay, good to know. Also, ESP says, really enjoyed this book. Me too. I'm glad you like it. Drive Jewel says, thoroughly enjoyed this, my first live with you. Oh, well, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you here, and I hope you will come back for others. We'll be here every Friday at the same time. So please, catch. And if you're on Odyssey, you can look at my playlist tab, and I've got at least 3 of the full books read through on there. If you go to my YouTube page, which I understand if you don't want to, but my YouTube page has all 9 of the previous books that we've read through on the channel. And it is 9. And I have said on a previous broadcast that we've done 10. I was wrong. I thought we'd done 10 books, but actually we've done 9, and this Prince Charles one is the 10th. So 10 kingdoms, 10 kings, 10 books. It all ties in together, right? So over on Rumble, we got Heidi and giving us a lesson in some biblical lessons. So Revelation, she's saying, works on many levels and is about empires past, present, and future. End timers don't get it. End timing. So I think end timers is this idea that we're in the end times and Jesus is right about to come back and sort everybody out, and we just need to get through the beast system and we'll be all right. But apparently, according to Heidi, this is a heresy called Chiliasm. All right, Chiliasm. Never heard of that word before, but thank you for that. Turbs says, inbred parasite cretins. Yep, I like it. Turbs also is giving us a bit of context from Wikipedia, saying the Group of 77, G77 at the United Nations, is a coalition of developing countries designed to promote its members' collective economic interests and create an enhanced joint negotiating capacity at the United Nations. So yeah, again, it's that centralization of power. It's that grouping together of nation states under an umbrella, a la the EU, a la the map of 10 regions that we saw in this Club of Rome book, which Club of Rome then was just mentioned, The Limits to Growth by Joan Veon. But yeah, it's that centralization of power at higher and higher levels, all the way up to the top where the people who run the world government are at. ESP has got some very kind words to say about the channel. My higher self told me I struck gold with your channel. Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. I love doing this. I was really like missing it when this month that I've had off. I've been very productive getting other stuff done, but I missed live streaming. And when I decided to come back tonight, I was like really pumped up and excited and looking forward to it. So, Turbs also says, I'm looking at The Gang of Three on Amazon after you mentioned Plato. Is that a book? If that's a book, I've never heard of it, and I will also be looking it up. All right, what's going on over on YouTube? Always the most lively chat. Always most people hanging out on YouTube seems to be the platform of choice, which I understand. Ronnie Cooper said, don't forget Vlad the Impaler bloodline. Yeah, I knew he'd said that. I need to dig up that clip, but he definitely says on a clip somewhere on an interview like, oh, I'm related to Vlad the Impaler, which is not at all surprising. I mean, look at that portrait they just did. He's really channeling his inner Vlad in that portrait. Charles's birth and connection to the UN start date sounds like a scene from Rosemary's Baby. That's from Ronnie Cooper as well. Hasdak says, at the end of the day, they die just like everyone else. Nothing special about them. Yeah, I agree, Hasdak. They're just con artists. They've just conned the rest of us, most of us, into just accepting that they are allowed to have this ridiculously privileged life of wealth, power, influence, and luxury at the expense of, the commoners. It's bizarre that we allow it to continue. And in fact, in many cases, people will fight to maintain this status quo, and they'll defend it, and they'll call you a black pillar for pointing it out, or they'll call you a conspiracy theorist for saying this is crazy. We could do something so much better, right? So yeah, it's an absolute con that they've pulled on the rest of us. And they did a great job. because they're still swanning about with all their luxurious, expensive houses and private cars and whatever else they've got. I bet we can't even imagine the stuff that they've got, really. Alien Scientist, what's up? Good to see you here. It says, I've heard Charles call us all goyim while talking to Chabad Lubavitch group. Really? Now that is a clip that would be worth broadcasting on one of these. If I can dig that up, or if you have it, please send me an email to it. That would be lovely. Charlie had a David Icke moment then, stood barefoot on a mound with his arms outstretched. We should thank our great king for our British rundown high streets and small overpriced living spaces. Hail the king of corporations. Nice one. Well said, Ronnie. Frank Lennon says, another great book relevant here is Behind the Green Mask by the late Rosa Quare. Yeah, I need to get a copy of that as well. That's quite a short one, isn't it? I've read an electronic copy. I think it's sub 200 pages if memory serves. Frank Lennon says, Dr. Noel Brown, we met him, an Irishman, in the book Fearful Master by Ed Griffin. Great memory, well remembered. I totally did not make that connection. So I'm very grateful to have you in the chat, Frank, to catch these sort of things. What else we got? Okay, Darren. I'm just going to do this one. All right. So Darren's just put some instructions in the YouTube chat that fits tonight, because we've been talking about numerology and we've been sort of playing around with dates, and Ashley Styles did a bit of numerology earlier on in the stream. And Darren says, right, and I wrote this, I don't know if you saw me write this earlier, but Darren says, so public-private partnership, right? He says, public-private partnership, write it down on a piece of paper, turn the piece of paper upside down, and then hold it in front of a mirror. Now, unfortunately, I can't do the mirror bit for you, but I can write underneath how it would look if you held it to a mirror. It would look. Let's pretend the mirror's here. All right, I'll see if I can do this. The mirror's here. Then it would look something like this, right? That would be the mirrored version. And then if you turn it the right way up again, that's giving you a numerology, isn't it? So there's some more numerology for you. It's all about these things are often encoded. These things are, that's how it's in plain sight, but you got to have the eyes to see, right? And you got to be thinking a little more symbolically, a little more laterally. You got to see connections between things that might not at first glance be connected. And Darren is really, really good at that. And I'm always sending him like icons and logos and corporate graphics. And I'm like, hey, you see anything in this? And Darren catches great stuff. So I appreciate that. I think that was a nice round off to the end of the live stream. Murray one is impressed. He says, oh, snap. All right. Hasdak says, what's Hasdak talking about here? I wonder if Alex Jones came across her. I think you're talking about Joan Veon. I'm not sure if he ever did. I'm not a massive consumer of Alex Jones's content. All right. Thank you for your thanks. People saying good video, Nick from Hasdak, and thanks. Good to have you back reading. It's great to be back. I'm very happy that we are restarting this, and I think one video a week on a Friday is sustainable. You know, I don't want to use that word, but it is. It's enough that I won't get burnt out while I'm doing my other stuff, and we can. It gives people a whole week to catch up as well, because these tend to run until 3 hours, don't they? So, oh, Streaky Bacon, what is going on? Hope you're doing well. Good to have you here, and you're making me hungry as always. Whenever I see you in the chat, I'm always like, oh, I could do with a plate of Streaky Bacon right now. Okay. I think that is it for today. We are coming in just under 3 hours, so let's wrap it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much to have you all here. As always, you can, if you feel so inclined, support by going to allmylinks.com/HazeReviews, where you can find out my social media links, my email address, the different things that I've put out onto the internet. Hopefully you'll find something there that you like. And it's always good to connect on multiple platforms in case one of these ever gets nuked, which I've been saying that for a year and I haven't even had so much as a strike. So maybe I'm good. Maybe I'm approved. Maybe I'm authorized. Obviously, I'm not spicy enough and I am not close enough to the real truth, because otherwise they would have struck my channel down with lightning by now, wouldn't they? But anyway, thanks all for hanging out. It's been lovely to see you. I'll play you out with a little bit of guitar music as usual. And a reminder, a URL for my online community, Devised, where we are tackling screen addiction. We're learning about it. We're understanding. We just finished a read through of a book. This one, The 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. We read through the whole thing, the same way we read through books on this channel, except I had other people on the call who were giving in their thoughts and reactions, right? And that whole playlist is inside the Devised community. You can get that for free if you just sign up to the community, which costs zero money. Right now it costs zero money. It might not always cost zero money, but right now it does. And I'll just show you, once you, if you go over there and you do log in and you make an account, you sign up, you can go to the classroom page and then you can click Book Club Replays. And there is the whole playlist. And that's 17 chapters. Each one of these is about 2 hours long. Incredibly interesting book. And it will make you consider screens in a whole different way. And all those videos are also on Odyssey. And there's a bunch of links underneath for resources and things that are discussed and mentioned in the videos. So you get all that for free if you sign up to the Device community. Isn't that nice? I think it's nice. And the next book we are doing, as I mentioned, is Surveillance Valley. So there, how about that? I'm going to leave it there. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a great week. In fact, I won't be seeing you as often, so I'll have to tell you to have a good week. And I hope you get everything you need to get done, and you're enjoying spring. It's around the corner now. We're getting life is coming into the world again, and it's always a good time to be optimistic, to feel good, to think about your trajectory, where you're going in life, where your habits and your daily routines and behaviors are taking you, and, make a switch, make a change, make an alteration, make a course correction, do that little thing that you've been putting off that you should be doing, make that little change, give up that bad habit. It's just a really nice time to think along these lines, because the energy of the seasons and the shifts that are taking place here in England, at least, if you're in another place where the season's totally different, you can disregard this. But here in England, where spring is starting to come through, I always think is a really good time to reassess and take that momentum of life coming back into the world to do something good. So why not? Why not do something good? Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you at 6 o'clock next Friday. We'll continue our reading of the Sus Prince, who is very sus indeed. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves and each other, and I will see you on the next one. God bless.